What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers. We have UFC Vegas 43, Miesha Tate going against Ketlen Vieira on a card that I actually think is going to deliver. I think this card's pretty good. We have fights like Sean Brady, Michael Chiesa as the co-main event, Adrian Yanez, Davey I think is going to be very fun. We have Ziam going against Terrence McKinney. He's looking to be a good fight. And just some great fights on this card. I think it's going to be like a really sneaky good card. Pat Sabatini, Tucker Lutz is going to be good. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Should be a fun one. As always, if you guys can please smash the like button, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. I am here anywhere from like 3 to 5 days a week. So make sure you check us out and all the other shows, all the other content the guys at Pub Sports Radio do. And, yeah, we'll do a quick recap of last night, and then we'll get into this card. I'm here as always with Uncle Weezy, the man behind the stats. Shout out to Uncle Weezy for putting together this model each and every single week. Uncle Weezy, what is up? You looking forward to this card? And then give a quick recap of last night as well.
Okay, yeah, definitely looking forward to this card. It's lower level fights, but they're exciting prospects. There looks like there's going to be some finishes on this card, which is always my kind of card. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this one. And then as far as last week goes, it's one I'd like to forget. Pretty much got rinsed on just about every single bet that I made. To add insult to injury, I picked Ben Rothwell as my ass shaving of the week. And not only did he lose, he got absolutely served in the first 30 seconds to a light heavyweight in Marcos Rogerio de Lima. So that was really bad. I mean, my other 2.5 unit bet was Thiago Moises, who got absolutely destroyed on the feet by somebody that I did not know had any striking at all. If you could have been any more wrong than me yesterday, congratulations, because it was almost mathematically impossible to do. Really, really rough day for me, Brady, down 5.6 units, I believe, on the day. And, yeah, just got my ass shaved out there. But, you know, whether we win or we lose, we're back here the next day. The research gets done early. The stats get printed, get ready to go. We got more fights this week. We got 12 of them to go over. We got to get it back this week, Brady. We got to get it back.
For sure. And no shame in a loss. Losses do happen. But I'll be honest with you, it is very hard to get motivated after a loss and go and tape Miesha Tate, Ketlen Vieira. That was rough. But yeah, like you mentioned, we put in the work, ready for today. For me, it was a very frustrating card because I feel like everything I bet on, for the most part, I got wrong, and everything I didn't bet on, I got right. So that was frustrating. It was a bad night. My only straight bet of the night was Ben Rothwell, 1.5 units, minus 141. Would have liked to see that fight play out, but I thought if De Lima did win, it would be in the first round. It happened. That is fine. But I also had the fight doesn't go to decision, as did you, Weezy. 1 unit, minus 135. Beat a lot of alignment on that. That was good. I had Max Holloway to win in rounds 4, 5, or by decision. We talked about that on the main event deep dive on Monday. Got that at minus 105. And then also sprinkled the Max wins in round 3 just in case. To cover the 3, 4, 5 and decision there. I liked how I played that one. And then I also added later in the week the Max Holloway wins by KO. Close, but no cigar there. And then this is what hurt me was my parlay. And I've been talking about trying to stay away from the parlays. They've been like killing me this year, no matter how confident I am in two of these plays. Thiago Moises and Max Holloway parlayed together, minus 163, 2 units on it. And yeah, I really thought Moises would win. I usually come on and make a joke about, my fighters performing bad like that, but I'm still in shock to see Alvarez go out there and just look that dominant against Moises. Moises not even try to shoot a takedown, but yeah, I was really wrong on that. And usually, like, I'm off, when I get something wrong, I'm like off, but that was like really wrong. So yeah, shout out to Alvarez. Yeah, he's a big guy for the division. He probably should move up. He's missed weight twice in a row, but yeah, if he's gonna strike like that, he always has that great grappling as well. He very well could be a problem. So yeah, minus 2.82 units. Ended up passing on a lot, which ended up hitting. Passed on Da Eun Jung, passed on Chaos Williams by knockout, passed on Spencer inside the distance. So lots of passes that did not work out. So yeah, I was like 2 in, I think like 3 or 4 on the night for a small loss. But like you said, Weezy, we're back here for UFC Vegas 43. Feeling pretty good about this card. Researched it all today. And yeah, no bets yet, but I'm going to talk these over with you and we'll see what we can find. Lots of early violent spots sticking out. Last week, I only had one violent spot in the Rothwell fight, but I think a lot of violent spots are sticking out. So it should be a really good card here. All right, so let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. As always, do appreciate you guys on a Sunday. The chat is already blowing up. You guys are awesome. Levi saying Joel Alvarez shaving that ass. He certainly did shave that ass. I was not able to watch the main card. I was out with some family, but I'm glad I did not see that. But I heard about it, and I heard it was bad. I saw some highlights too. He did get his ass shaved there. Eric Betts fights. It's Sunday, gents. Time to work for that daily bread. Yes, sir. We got Raw Torque in here. We have Dan Goldstein. Shout out to Dan, always hanging out, bringing the comedy. Abu Dhabi saying bounce back week. Yes, sir. Let's see what else we got. Benjamin in here. Yeah, always good to bounce back. We got Eric. We got Nigel Lee. What is up, Nigel Lee? Tristan, Roy, JP. Tiago shit, and yeah, Tiago did bad. We got AJ, MMA betting. Shout out to AJ, the best way to start UFC research. Cheers, Brady and Weezy. Cheers, AJ. Shout out to him. He's on the Tuesday show here on Pub Sports Radio for the DraftKings. Smooth Cat, Pocket QB, Lamar Jackson. Shout out to all of you guys. So I say we get into it. Uncle Weezy, are you ready?
I'm ready to roll, man. Let's go.
Let's do this. So let's start with the first fight of the night. We have Luana Pinheiro going against Sam Hughes. We have Pinheiro, 28 years old, 5'2" with a 62-inch reach. Sam Hughes, she is 29 years old, 5'5" with a 64-inch reach. Sam Hughes is going to be 1 year older, a 3-inch height advantage, and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. Pinheiro, she is 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut against Randall Marcos, got a DQ win. It was an illegal upkick on the Randall Marcos side in that fight. She looked good in the first round. Her striking looked solid. She's able to outstrike Marcos pretty clearly. She even took down Marcos 5 times. She's like throwing around the cage. So I really did like what I saw from Pinheiro, but I would have liked the fight to play out a little bit longer to see how she looked in the second and third. And then she had a knockout win on the Contender Series. So 5-0 in her last 5 fights. I think her first loss was like either the first or second fight in her career. So it's been a while since she has lost. As far as Sam Hughes, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. She made her UFC debut against Tecia Torres. It was that weird cut stoppage after the first round. And then she lost a decision against Lookboonmee. And I'll be honest, I was actually kind of impressed with Sam Hughes in that fight. I did have a bet on Lookboonmee, and I was kind of sweating it. Sam Hughes even won the second round on all 3 of the judges' scorecards there. So yeah, I was kind of impressed there. She did perform a lot better than I expected her to. But yeah, this is a very interesting fight. You have Pinheiro, who are striking solid, like I said. I believe she's a judo background. She's very strong. And Sam Hughes cannot stuff a takedown. I kind of feel like that's going to be the tail of this fight. So, Uncle Weezy, what are you seeing in this very first fight of the night?
Yeah, so very interesting because, I had just watched the Pinheiro Loma fight right before we went on the air. And Loma Lookboonmee is 5'1", and I don't remember Sam Hughes looking any bigger than her in the cage. And Sam Hughes is listed here at 5'5". So I'm not sure what's going on there, but she will supposedly have a 3-inch reach advantage, will Sam Page, as well as having a 2-inch or a 3-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. It's going to be Pinheiro that has 2 more fights, but really the experience is almost the same. It's just that Sam Page has been really busy, fighting 8 times in under 3 years, while Pinheiro has fought 10 times in a little over 5 years. The UFC experience, they both have 2 fights. Sam Page, 20 minutes in the cage. Pinheiro, only 7. Both these ladies finishers. Sam Page has finished 4 of her 5 pro wins. Pinheiro has finished, it looks like, 7 of her 9 pro wins. And in their 4 combined losses, 2 of them have come inside the distance. Pinheiro's never been finished, and it's Sam Page who's been finished twice out of her 3 pro losses. Once in the UFC by knockout, once outside the UFC by submission. The submission loss was to Vanessa Demopoulos, but with a real cheeky inverted triangle choke there. If we look at the striking numbers here, there's not much to hang our hat on because we only have 2 fights for each of them. Pinheiro, though, landing way more than she absorbs at a positive 2.41 significant strike differential, which is excellent. And then we look at Sam Page, and yikes, it's minus 3.35 significant strikes a minute that she's absorbing. She really got hammered by Tecia Torres. And then, Pinheiro's been more sound defensively. Sam Page only showing 40% striking defense, which is not good. And then when we go to the grappling numbers, we see that Pinheiro has gotten 5 takedowns in only 2 fights, and they were all against Randa Marcos. While Sam Page has not gotten any takedowns, but she did do a good job in the clinch against Loma Lookboonmee. Sam Page has got some really nice Muay Thai. She's got good striking. She's good in close, and she can kind of hold her opponent up against the cage and can work some minutes there, win some minutes on the cage. And I think that's going to be what she's going to have to do against Pinheiro here. The problem with that, Brady, is Pinheiro being such a high-level judo player. Once you get into a clinch with a judo player, it opens up a lot of their takedown attacks. And if you go back and you watch Loma against Sam here, Loma got her takedowns not from shooting in on single legs and double legs. She was getting her takedowns there in the clinch. I think we'll be able to see Pinheiro do the same thing here. It's obviously Sam Page who's faced a better brand of competition in the UFC because she fought Tecia Torres, while Luana Pinheiro's has fought Randa Marcos, not quite on Tecia Torres's level. Luana does have a really nice little grappling game. She's well-rounded. She hits hard. She's a big favorite in this fight, and I do see why. It's just hard to picture Sam Page keeping this fight on the feet long enough in order to, kind of even out the striking exchanges where she might have a chance. But if this fight keeps getting to the ground, I think we're going to see Pinheiro have a lot of success and potentially even finish the fight, as she's finished 78% of her pro wins.
Yep, for sure. I got done taping this fight. I looked at the odds, like, what the heck? I mean, we see that Pinheiro opened up as a minus 185 favorite. She's now minus 350, making her the biggest favorite on the card. Sam Hughes opened up plus 160. She's now plus 285. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a pretty solid matchup for Pinheiro. I mean, just seeing how bad Sam Hughes' takedown defense is. I mean, Luma was just throwing her down like it was nothing. Pinheiro, very strong, very good judo, like you mentioned. I feel like she's going to be able to mix in takedowns on the feet. I probably favor Pinheiro there as well, just because of how hittable Sam Hughes is. Like, her striking defense is just non-existent. A 40% striking defense. That's not good. So, yeah, I mean, I just really struggle to see a path to victory for Sam Hughes outside of Pinheiro potentially gassing out bad, maybe slowing down late. But even then, I think it's a solid matchup for Pinheiro. So, although I think the line is probably too wide, I can't deny that I don't think that Pinheiro wins. I think she does win, and she does win pretty handily. But again, she is the biggest favorite on the card. But as far as the fight doesn't go to decision lines, we actually have them this time, so that's good. The fight goes to decision is minus 125. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 115. I could potentially see a Pinheiro finish, but I'm kind of leaning Pinheiro decision. No really strong lean one way or another. So, any thoughts on the minus 350? Think about parlaying it or anything like that, and then fight goes or fight doesn't go. Any leans there?
Well, I gotta look more into the Pinheiro tape here because, like I said, you nailed it. Sam Page looked pretty good against Loma, and Loma's good. People think of Loma as just a pure Muay Thai striker, but she's well-rounded. She's actually got quite a few takedowns in the UFC, and she goes for takedowns on the regular. So, yeah, this is an interesting one. It is a wide line. I'd like to see if there's any value here on Sam Hughes once I get further into the tape. But I need to look more into Luana here. But I just noticed the lines the last time I checked, like an hour ago, weren't out yet for the fight goes and the fight doesn't go. But the fight doesn't go actually is intriguing to me here, because if we think that Pinheiro is going to win this fight, we see Pinheiro has finished 7 of her 9 wins, and Sam Page has been finished in 2 of her 3 losses. So the fact that we're getting fight doesn't go here and almost a pick 'em when Pinheiro has a good chance to finish this fight, especially if she goes out at the pace that she did in the Marcos fight. And also, if she goes out at the pace that she did in the Marcos fight and then gasses, we could see Sam Page getting a late finish here. So I'm kind of looking at that fight doesn't go to decision prop because it's almost a pick 'em. And that's very intriguing to me.
I could see a finish, but yeah, like I said, no strong lean one way or another. But yeah, I think we're both on the Pinheiro side because Sam Hughes has no takedown defense and no striking defense, which is not good. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have Shalion Nerden-Beke going against Sean Soriano. Shalion, he is 27 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. Sean Soriano, 32 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. So Sean Soriano is going to have a 1-inch height advantage. a 2-inch reach advantage, and he's going to be 5 years older. Taking a look at their last few fights, so Sean Soriano fought back in the UFC around like 2015, 2014, and he went, I believe, like 0-3 in the UFC, got cut, and now he made his return against Christos Giagos in his last fight, and then he lost by submission there. So I believe he's like 0-4 in the UFC, and he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Xiaolian made his UFC debut against Josh Kulabau. In that fight, he won the first round. He was able to kind of hug Kulabau for the whole round, hold him against the cage, won the first round, but kind of slowed down as the fight goes on. It showed that he's pretty one-dimensional. His striking's not all that there. No volume, kind of one shot at a time, but his wrestling looks solid. His grappling looks solid, and that's kind of what you're going to need to beat Sean Soriano here. So I thought that was pretty interesting. We do see that he get knocked out by Rong Zhu as well, but he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Sean Soriano, I do think he's going to have the striking advantage in this fight. I'm actually really impressed with the striking of Sean Soriano. He hits very hard as well. And Xiaolian is probably going to have the grappling advantage. I looked it up, and apparently Xiaolian is a black belt in BJJ, which kind of surprised me. But he's going to need to bring that black belt into the cage here, because Sean Soriano, when he does lose, he's getting submitted. The guy's been submitted like 5 times. On paper, he has like a 50% takedown defense or worse. So, yeah, I think it's a really intriguing matchup. We got a striker versus a grappler. Soriano is going to want on the feet and probably knock out Xiaolian, or Xiaolian's going to want to get this down to the mat and maybe find a submission. So, yeah, very intriguing matchup here. Weezy, you looking forward to this one?
Yeah, I want to see more of this Xiaolian, and they brought Soriano back for a reason. Soriano trains over at Sanford MMA, and he's a really good striker, but he got caught when he was on his first tenure with the UFC, kind of just getting submitted by everybody. And if you look at his UFC record, the guy's got 4 losses, and he's been submitted in 3 of them in the UFC. And then we look at the 7 pro losses for Soriano. 6 of them have finished inside the distance, 5 of them by submission, 1 by knockout. And then we're also looking at Xiaolian, 7 professional losses, 6 of them have come inside the distance. So out of the 14 combined losses, Brady, we got 12 of them coming inside the distance. This one screams fight doesn't go to decision. I'm pissed off I don't have a pen in front of me, because this is what I really like to write down these bets. And
I wrote it down,
already thinking, what's that?
I wrote it down already before the show.
Yeah, good. We're gonna be keeping an eye on this one, man. When I see 14 combined losses and 12 of them have finished inside the distance, I get so excited, man. That's a bet that I hammer that bet every single time. And then, like you say, it's that stylistic matchup also that we get to hang our hat on. Who's going to win? Is it going to be the striking of Soriano? Is he going to be able to keep this fight on the feet? Or is it going to be the grappling and the pressure of Xiaolian, where he used 14 takedown attempts in his first fight against Kulabau and out-controlled his opponent 40.67% to 0.44%. So we're going to see either Xiaolian gas late by pushing a wrestling-heavy game plan, or maybe Soriano has the chance to catch him really at any time, because the dude hits very hard. And in his own right, Soriano is finishing his opponent 79% of the time. So that would be 11 out of 14 fights have finished inside the distance for Soriano as well. So, and Xiaolian has a 70% finish rate. So, these guys are doing the job inside the distance here. They're both doing it well. And not only that, we have the striker versus grappler stylistic matchup where somebody's going to have to push a very heavy pace that could gas them out. And then also they're going to be looking not to get clipped. I could see Soriano getting subbed here, as we see 5 victories by submission in Xiaolian's career. And I could see Soriano knocking out Xiaolian, who's been finished in 6 of his 7 losses. So, and Xiaolian was knocked out cold by Zhu Rong on the Rong Zhu, I guess we would say, on the regional scene in Wuling Feng. So, yeah, I'm liking fight doesn't go to decision here. We don't have much to hang our hat on with the strength of schedule. But the striking numbers, Xiaolian with a 27% striking accuracy. That might be the worst in the UFC, dude. He couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, And then we got Soriano with a 61% striking accuracy, 5% better striking defense. Neither one of these guys has ever been knocked down. But it's going to be, Soriano in those 4 fights has had 32 takedown attempts shot against him. He's only successfully defended 17 of them. So that's a 53% striking defense and he has been controlled 50% of his UFC career. It's the clearest, well, it might be the clearest striker versus grappler matchup on the card, but I'm picking this one to finish inside the distance for sure. I'm going to be refreshing the screen, waiting for that fight doesn't go to decision for this one.
Yep. Like I said, I did write that down as a spot I was considering before the show, and I'm actually going to pick the underdog here in Xiaolian. He's not great, but we saw in his UFC debut, he attempted 14 takedowns. He only got 2 of them. But yeah, Sean Soriano is somebody not just in the UFC, but even outside the UFC, he is struggling with, people taking him down and submitting him. And apparently, like I said, Xiaolian is a black belt in BJJ. I feel like if he does go to that game plan of getting this fight down to the mat, especially early, I feel like he could have success and maybe even find a submission. You mentioned Xiaolian slowing down. It's interesting because both guys kind of slow down, especially Xiaolian in his last fight. He was slowing down a ton after that first round. And, how could you not? He attempted a ton of takedowns in that first. And then Sean Soriano, we see him slow down a lot as well. He slowed down in the Giagos fight in his last fight, got submitted there. He is very, very explosive early on. I feel like Sean Soriano is going to have a ton of opportunities. As long as this is on the feet in that range, Sean Soriano is going to have a ton of opportunities to finish Xiaolian. But I feel like Xiaolian, if he does fight smart, which, in his last fight, I thought he did fight smart, just he was not able to get takedowns. I feel like he could have success here and exploit the hole in the game of Soriano, which is the takedown defense and which is the submission defense. But yeah, I'm looking at the fight doesn't go to decision as well. You mentioned it that Xiaolian, although he is apparently a black belt, again, I don't know how legit that is. He has been submitted in 4 out of his 7 losses, and he has been knocked out once by Rong Zhu, like you mentioned, so 5 out of his 7. And then Soriano's been submitted 5 times out of his 6 losses. So yeah, I feel like Soriano could get a knockout here. He has a ton of power. He's very explosive. And I feel like Xiaolian could potentially get a submission here. So yeah, I like that violent spot a lot. But yeah, as far as a pick, I'm going to go Xiaolian. I don't know if I'm going to bet it. I think I'll just take the violence aspect here. We see that fight goes to decision is -140. Fight doesn't go to decision is +100. Sean Soriano opened up -225. He's currently -235. And then Xiaolian opened up at +190. He's currently +200. So, yeah, pretty big dog here. And I see why he did not make a good account for himself in his UFC debut. But I feel like if he does come in here with the right game plan, which I feel like he will, I feel like this fight could be a lot closer than the line indicates. So, but yeah, +100. Fight doesn't go to decision. That seems pretty decent.
Dude, yeah, I'm going to be jumping on that for more than one. I'm going to probably try to win 2 units on that because that's how I like to handicap those fight doesn't go is more on the losses than on the wins. And I mean, 12 of 14 inside the distance, that's like an 85% implied probability there. I mean, we're approaching a 50% implied probability for the fight doesn't go at +100. So that is a very wide edge. I'm going to be looking to hit that. And then, when you look at Xiaolian's commitment to the wrestling, and then you pair that with Soriano's ability to not only be taken down over and over again and held there, but potentially have the fight finished there via submission, to be getting +220 on Xiaolian is very, very, very intriguing for me. I easily could see him winning minutes on the ground here if he goes to the wrestling early and often and winning enough minutes to get a decision. Or finishing him on the ground.
Yeah, for sure. The only problem with me is, stylistically, it seems like a really good spot for Xiaolian. The only problem is he's not that good. But
yeah, he isn't.
That's the only problem. But yeah, +200. It's interesting, especially considering how bad Soriano is on the mat, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, he's terrible on the mat, man. I mean, we're talking about 5 career losses by submission, a 53% takedown defense in a 4-fight sample size in the UFC. And he's been finishing 3 of his 4 UFC losses, but via submission. Only seen the scorecards once in the UFC. So yeah, it's a nice little look. I mean, I'm already seeing some spots that I like. Let's hope that this one, let's hope that these props drop pretty soon.
Yeah, I wish I had access to 5 dimes, man. It'd make life a lot easier. +100 for fight doesn't go to decision. I think that's a spot that I would be looking at if I had that line for sure.
Yeah,
but let's move. Yes, sir. Let's move on to the next fight. Before we do so, if y'all can please smash that like button. Thank you so much for hanging out on a Sunday with us. As always, 6:15 p.m. Eastern time, we go live breaking down the next week's card. There is no days off ever with me and Weezy. We're always going right back after it. So we have Cody Durden going against, this is weird. So I guess his name's pronounced Archie Lang, something crazy like that. It does not look like it at all, but apparently it's Archie Lang. So Cody Durden going against Archie Lang. We have Cody Durden, 30 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach. Archie Lang, 28 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. So Archie Lang, he's going to be 2 years younger, same height, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Cody Durden, he has 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. He came in, he fought Chris Gutierrez at 135 pounds and got a draw there. He won the first round. He got a 10-8 in the first round, which is debatable if that was a 10-8 or not. He took down Gutierrez in the first round. He didn't really do much with the takedown, but Gutierrez did not really make an effort to get up. 10-8 there, and then he did lose the second 2 rounds, kind of slowing down as the fight went on. And then the second round, in his second fight in the UFC against Jimmy Flick, he was looking really good early, and then Jimmy Flick ended up submitting him. I think he jumped in a pulled guard. I think it was a flying triangle, something crazy like that. Ended up submitting him, one of the best submissions of the year. So 1-1 draw in his last 5 fights. As far as Archie Lang, he did make his UFC debut against Molina. He lost by decision, and that was probably one of my favorite fights of the year. That was UFC 261, the very first card with fans back in a while, and they put on an absolute war. And I went back and watched that fight, and that fight was a lot closer than I remembered. Archie Lang clearly won the first round, and he actually won the first 2 minutes of the second round, and then he got dropped after the 1.5 round mark. And then it was all Molina after that. Molina started taking over, and Molina started putting a pace on him. But Archie Lang was still in the fight. He was getting tagged up, especially in the third round, but he did hurt Molina bad in those last 10 seconds, and Molina was wobbling to his corner after the fight. So, yeah, I was really impressed with Archie Lang, although he did lose. This is a wrestler versus the striker. He does have some wrestling in his own right. He has went to the takedown route more often than not. He went and got 3 takedowns against Jeff Molina. But I feel like Archie Lang is going to definitely want to keep this on the feet. He's going to have a striking advantage, in my opinion. I really like the volume of Archie Lang. He is hittable, but he's a brawler. He comes forward. Cody Durden is a very good wrestler. He's going to need to get this fight down to the mat. Yeah, very intriguing fight here, Weezy. What are you looking at for this one?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things that popped out for me is Kelang, 25 fights in only 6 years. Some of these Chinese dudes, they're incredibly active, even at young ages, like Song Yadong, like Zhu Rong, Ori Kelang. These guys got a ton of fights and they're still young. He's still only 28 years old. So very, very busy. This guy's fighting an average of over 4 times a year is Kelang. And then, even Durden is fighting almost 3 times a year here. Durden, one more UFC fight, a little more time in the UFC cage. If we look at how these guys win their fights, Cody Durden is very equal opportunity in terms of his ways to finish fights. He's got 11 wins, and 5 of them are by knockout, and 5 of them are by sub. So the dude is a really good finisher, just under 90%. And then he's also been finished in 2 out of his 3 losses. So, Durden for sure has been 80% finish rate for and against in his fights. And then Kelang has only a 39% finish rate, which is interesting. And then he has been subbed in, I think, 3 of his 7 pro losses. So Cody Durden, and Aori Kelang might be both trying to get this fight to the ground. Kelang 4 takedown attempts in 1 fight. Durden 15 takedown attempts in 2 fights. Both of these guys out controlling their opponents, but it is Durden who's doing the much more in terms of dominating and winning minutes on the ground, as he has a 41% control time for and less than a 6% control time against. 50% takedown defense. He's been taken down once out of 2 times. What's a little bit troubling is the 26.67% takedown accuracy for Durden. Even though he's doing a great job of the control time positions in his fights are, about 85 to 90% his, so he's dominating his opponents on the ground, but he's not doing a great job of getting it there, as he's only getting takedowns at a 26.67% clip. If we look at the striking numbers, both of these guys are absorbing more than they land. But if you look at Kelang, landing 7.73 and absorbing 12.6 in that Molina fight. So, we did see Kelang really, really go to war in that UFC debut. We know that this guy can go the full 3. And we know that if Durden doesn't put the kind of pace on Kang that Molina did, that we could really see Kang be strong for 3 rounds here. And Kang, really good with his offensive wrestling attack, as he got 3 of the 4 takedowns he shot on Molina, who doesn't have great takedown defense, but he does have a good get-up game. So even though Kang is out takedowning his opponents 3-0, he's only out controlling them 13.33% to 4.78%. So he's not as efficient with his grappling as Cody Durden has been thus far in the UFC. If we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, both of these guys are fighting fairly decent competition for newbies, as we got Flick and Gutierrez on the Durden resume and El Jefe on the Kang resume. This is a good fight, man. I don't know which way I'm leaning yet, because I do know that Cody, while he's less experienced, while he's at a 2-inch reach disadvantage here, I do know that he's very well rounded, just like Kang is. I think this fight's going to come down to volume and accuracy, and who defends the takedowns and who's more efficient in the grappling exchanges. What do you see for this one?
Yeah, so I told you earlier, like I spent 2 hours just about taping this fight. I went and watched every single fight possible on Archie Lang. It was kind of like 10 fights around there, and then same thing with Cody Durden. Cody Durden's fights typically end really fast. What I was looking for in the tape of Archie Lang is how good is this guy's takedown defense, and the answer to that is pretty good. I saw him get taken down a couple times, but these were fights like in 2017. Do you know if Archie Lang is training at the PI? I believe he was, right?
Yeah, he probably is, because I remember he came on the card with Na Liang, with Zhang Weili, and Zhu Rong. Yep. And what they were saying was, I think Zhang Weili was training at Black Lotus or Black Tiger Fight Club, and then the other 3 were all at the PI in China. So I believe he's still there, but you know how it is.
Yeah, I know how it is.
It's even Sherdog and Tapology usually don't. They're very behind in updating where these guys are training. And some of them have been coming to the United States, most recently Wang Jie Li, to fight over at to train with Henry Cejudo. So, yeah, he could be training here in the States now, but I have to assume it's the PI right now.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. And I went to find his Instagram, but I couldn't find it, which was weird. I kind of wanted to see how he's looking there. But yeah, his takedown defense is really good from what I've seen. When he did get taken down, he was able to pop right back up. I think that's great news. Cody Durden, he's powerful. He's dangerous. He has great ground and pound, great submissions. I believe he's a purple belt in BJJ. His wrestling is very, very good. It's just I don't know if he can implement that game plan for 15 minutes there. We have seen him slow down as the fight goes on. And Archie Lang, we have seen him go a full 3 rounds. Yeah, I was very tempted on the Archie Lang side. I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger yet. I do see, though, that he has been submitted a few times in his career. He has been submitted how many times? What is it? 3? Yeah, 3 times in his career. I think he got submitted in 2017 being the last time. So, maybe he's made improvements, but if Durden's able to get him down, that's kind of where my concern is. Maybe a Durden early sub. I do think that's in play, but I think as the fight goes on, I love the volume from Archie Lang. I love the toughness, the durability, the heart of Archie Lang as well. This guy has a ton of heart. He showed that Molina fight, and I feel like as the fight goes on, he's going to be able to stuff the takedowns easier and easier. But my concern is just the early going. I feel like Durden could potentially have some success early with his wrestling. But yeah, I do like the Archie Lang. My God, cannot pronounce his name. Archie Lang side here, and we do see that he is the dog. And this was a line I was eyeing a couple days ago, and then it went to a pick'em, and now it's Durden back as the favorite. Durden opened up -145. He went to a -110, and now he's back to -135. Archie Lang opened up at +125, went all the way down to +100, and now he's back at +115. And yeah, I do like the Archie Lang side here. I might wait it out a little bit, see where the line goes. I do see some money still coming in on Durden, but I feel like Durden early on, he's going to have success. I just don't know if he can keep that up for 15 minutes. So yeah, I do like Archie Lang quite a bit, though. As far as the fight goes to decision, fight doesn't go. The fight goes to decision is -180. The fight doesn't go to decision is +140. Yeah, I'm kind of tempted on the fight doesn't go at plus 140 there, because I think if Durden wins, I feel like it's going to be like an early submission, maybe an early TKO. Whereas Archie Lang, I feel like it'd be like a late round finish there. So that's kind of interesting to me. Archie Lang has been finished in 3 of his 8 losses, 3 by submission, and then Cody Durden's been finished in 2 of his 3 losses, 2 by submission. And Durden does have that 90% finish rate. The only problem for me is Archie Lang is not a finisher, only a 39% finish rate. So, yeah, Weezy, any thoughts on the fight goes, fight doesn't go? Any thoughts on the line there?
I like the fight doesn't go on this one because Durden seems to be that kind of fighter that you know, it doesn't really matter who the other side is. Durden is a killer be killed fighter.
Yeah.
And we saw it in that Flick fight, man. I mean, a lot of people thought that he wouldn't grapple at all with Flick. And I mean, he went out there, he shot a takedown, he got on top of him, he was beating him up. And then, you know, Flick got back up, and then he got that flying triangle or armbar, whatever it was. But, you know, Durden goes full blast early, and we know that Aori is not afraid of a war either. So I like that one. And then I saw that Raw Torque in there in the chat was saying he wanted to bet on the fighter with the best nickname. Well, I mean, how could you do better than the Mongolian Murderer in the Aori Kalang, man? I mean, that is a great nickname. So, and he's plus money right now. The fight doesn't go as at plus money. Yeah, I'm liking this spot. I mean, and if we think that Kalang can't fight in a war, this dude absorbed 189 significant strikes against El Jefe. I mean, he was knocked down twice against El Jefe, and he went to the bell, and as a matter of fact, got the best of the last 15 seconds of that fight and got the best of the first like 7.5 minutes of it. So, yeah, both of these guys are good prospects in my opinion. I mean, in Kalang, for a prospect to already have 25 fights is very impressive. I'm really looking forward to this one. I like fight doesn't go. I'm leaning Kalang right now, but I need to look into it more.
Yeah, for sure. You need a baseball bat to put out Archie Lang. Like, this guy absorbs so much hard shots too by Molina. And Molina, I know somebody that you're really high on. A lot of people are high on Molina, and even I'm kind of high on him now. I think is a very good guy to look out for. But yeah, interesting fight. I think this one's going to be an absolute banger. Looking at the fight doesn't go, and potentially even maybe a dog shot on Archie Lang. But like I said, I think the early going is kind of what concerns me the most. Maybe like a live betting scenario as well. If Durden's having success early, maybe he does take down Archie Lang. I don't know if he's going to be able to keep doing that for 15 minutes. So yeah, I'm on the Mongolian Murderer as well. So let's move on to the next fight here. This is a fun fight. Terrence McKinney, Faraz Ziam. We have Terrence McKinney, 27 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. Faraz Ziam, 24 years old, 6'1", with a 75-inch reach. Terrence McKinney is going to be 3 years older. He's going to be at a 3-inch height disadvantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage as well. Terrence McKinney, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Made his UFC debut against Matt Frevola, and he was a pretty big dog in that fight. He went out there and starched Matt Frevola. I want to say it was like the very first punch or like first couple punches, just put out Matt Frevola cold. Very impressive UFC debut. He also did fight on the Contender Series as well against Sean Woodson, a fight where he actually won the first round pretty dominant, and then he ended up winning the 2 minutes of the second round, and then got caught with a flying knee. No shame in that at all. We all saw what Sean Woodson looked like last night. As far as Ziam, made his UFC debut against Dom Madge in a very lackluster fight, a fight where Dom Madge pretty much held Ziam against the cage for like 15 minutes. And then a fun fight with Jamie Malarkey, very close fight, really could have went either way. And then he won that though against Jamie Malarkey, and then he beat Luigi Vandermini by decision as well. So yeah, I guess the big thing here with McKinney is this is a guy that is kill or be killed, like the definition of kill or be killed. I don't believe he's ever been over the 1.5 round mark. And I think he's been to the second round like one time. So this is a guy that gets in or gets out, no matter whether he's winning or losing. So it's going to be very interesting from a violent standpoint. But as far as the fight goes, I'm really looking forward to this one. Weezy, what do you got for us on this one?
Yeah, so the experience numbers look very much the same, right? Ziam, 15 fights, Terrence McKinney, 14 fights. And then we look at the amount of time that they've spent in the pro cage. For us, Ziam, 123.5 minutes. And in one less fight, McKinney has only spent 34 minutes in the cage. I mean, my God, dude, an average fight time of 2.43 minutes. I mean, there's high school kids having sex longer than that. You know, I mean, like it's unbelievable to think that this guy gets in and out of the cage that quickly. He's that dangerous. 100% finish rate in his wins. 100% finish rate in his losses. The absolute definition of a balls out, killer be killed fighter in Terrence McKinney. And then we got a guy in Ziam who's a fun fighter to watch, in my opinion, because if you get to watch this guy's regional scene footage, his striking is really, really good, really smooth, straight down the pipe punches, really fun to watch. And, you know, as a result of that, Ziam has come into the UFC and fought guys who just did not want to stand with him at all. Don Madge just fucked him for 15 full minutes. And then Jamie Malarkey tried to do the exact same thing and was unsuccessful. And then there was the Vendramini fight, which was just a bizarre fight. Luigi Vendramini, a killer be killed fighter in his own right, came out there and did nothing for 2 rounds and then just exploded on Ziam in the third and almost won that damn fight. So very crazy situation there. Ziam, an interesting opponent, because I'm hoping to see Fares Ziam not have to fight off takedowns for an entire fight. It would be a real treat. Let's look at the defensive grappling numbers for Fares Ziam in the UFC. Only 3 UFC fights, you guys, but he's faced almost 30 takedown attempts. So his opponents are doing everything they can not to box at range with him. I don't think that'll be the case with Terrence McKinney, even though on the Contender Series, when he did fight what I would consider to be a very similar opponent in Sean Woodson, because Sean Woodson is a striker first. He doesn't have a grappling base. He has a Golden Gloves boxing base. Well, for Fares Ziam, it's the same thing, only he's just really more of a European kickboxer type. You know, like almost like a Dutch style, but out of France. So anyway, it's going to be interesting to see if Terrence McKinney brings the same game plan that he did against Sean Woodson. Is he going to want to stand with Fares Ziam? Because nobody has wanted to stand with Fares Ziam yet. And you know what's really interesting about that, Brady, is you look at Malarkey, who's been starching dudes in his last 2 fights, right? Malarkey didn't want to strike with Fares Ziam. Malarkey shot like something like 15 takedowns in that fight. So, you know, you got to love the fight doesn't go to decision at whatever the price is. You know, I mean, even better than minus 350, I think I'm betting that, because, I mean, you can't do any better than a fight doesn't go to decision bet when you got Terrence McKinney in the cage. And then you got a guy in Ziam who has a ton of power in his own right. We just haven't seen it yet in the UFC because he hasn't had the chance to show it. I mean, we look at the control time numbers for Fares. 8% control time for, almost 44% control time against. So, you know, 52% of his fights are taking place in control time positions. People don't want to box with this guy. And then McKinney, there's no control time numbers, but the problem is that the control time numbers aren't available for the Contender Series fights for the first 3 seasons. So even though Terrence McKinney did have a ton of control time against Sean Woodson, it's not registering in my stats because those stats aren't available yet. Anyway, if we look at the level of competition that they've fought, a little bit better for McKinney thus far, but, you know, it's debatable because neither one of these guys has had a ton of fights. The wins just a little bit better for McKinney as well, losses as well. So slight strength of schedule advantage for McKinney. A size advantage here for Fares Ziam. Experience is very similar. The finish numbers, absolutely better for McKinney. You know, and these guys have 6 combined losses and 5 of them have come inside the distance. So, yeah, this is a great fight, dude. I don't know who's going to win, but I am betting the fight doesn't go to decision.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, like we said, Terrence McKinney is a kill or be killed fighter. He actually did go into round 3, so he's never been over the 2.5 round mark. He went into 43 seconds of round 3, and then he also went into about 1 minute and 49 seconds of round 2 against Sean Woodson. But other than that, 17 seconds in round 1, 16 seconds in round 1, 7 seconds in round 1, 1 minute 12, 2 minutes and 50 seconds in a fight, 7 seconds, 43 seconds, 1 minute and 39 seconds, 1 minute and 23 seconds. He's getting it done early, 15 seconds in round 1 as well, 2:15. So, yeah, I think violence is definitely the way to go. You mentioned it. Fares Ziam has been finished 2 times in his 3 losses, and Terrence McKinney has been finished in all of his losses as well. So, yeah, I think the violent spot's the way to look. As far as how this fight goes, yeah, I think McKinney is probably going to get this fight down to the mat, or at least try to. The problem with that is We saw in the Sean Woodson fight where he was having success early. It's just he slowed down a ton in that second round. He looked gassed mid-second round in that fight. So I worry that if McKinney does come in here at the wrestling heavy game plan, I think he'll have success. It just can't keep it up for 15 minutes. I'm not so sure he can. But we have seen that Ziam does struggle with the takedown. Luigi Vandermeer was able to take him down once. Jamie Malarkey was able to take him down 5 times. Dom Madge 3 times. And I think McKinney's probably a better wrestler than all those guys. So, yeah, it's a really close fight. And we see that it's a pick 'em for a very good reason. Minus 110 each way. Ziam opened up as a plus 155 dog, currently minus 110. McKinney opened up as a minus 180 fight favorite, currently minus 110. And that's kind of how I see this fight, Weezy. I see it as a pick 'em. I feel like McKinney could have success early, potentially finish Ziam early. But if he's not able to get Ziam out of there, I kind of see Ziam taking over as the fight goes on and finishing McKinney late. So yeah, I think the pick 'em price tag is warranted. We see that the fight goes to decision is plus 135. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 175. And yeah, I think that's off. Any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on the fight goes or doesn't go?
Yeah, I wish it was bettable on something besides 5 dimes, because I'd be on that for probably 3.5 units to win 2. Yeah, McKinney's a slam dunk. Fight doesn't go to decision bet. And for people who have seen McKinney lately and they've seen how impressive he's looked and how quickly he finishes fights, my suggestion would be to you, if you haven't watched Ziam fight outside the UFC, maybe take an hour to do that. Look at his pre-UFC footage. This guy is a legit striker. He's smooth. He's long. He's technically sound, and he's got good footwork, and he moves well. So, the longer this fight goes, I think it's going to be worse for T-Rex here. But the Smile Killer he hits hard. So I'm really looking forward to this. I love that I love that Ziam is getting the respect in the line right now, because I would think that T-Rex would be like minus 150 here, just because that absolutely impressive performance against Frivola, such an eye-catching knockout. And then, McKinney's been fighting at the highest level of the regional scene in a couple of different places here, and absolutely starching dudes in the first minute. So, I'm surprised he's not a bigger favorite here, but I think that that's correct, because Ziam's striking is very good, and his takedown defense has been good enough. It's been serviceable for him to win more fights than he's lost in the UFC. So very, very interesting matchup here.
Yep, for sure. We don't talk about this often, but on Tapology, 76% of people are picking McKinney. So I feel like he's going to be the popular pick this week. I'm actually not going to give a pick on this fight yet. I'm going to do some more tape on it. But what I will say is I think the fight doesn't go to decision is something I'm really, really considering. But David, with the dono, appreciate you, David, for the dono and hanging out here, saying good card so far, better than last. I think so. On paper, I think it's better than last cards, but man, last cards looks like it did deliver. Any thoughts on that, Weezy?
Yeah, I mean, I like this card a lot, because some of these prospect fights, you expect them to end early. You want to see when these guys take the next step, how do their skills translate at this level? And because that's a big unknown with the less experienced fighters, it's something, for some reason, I look forward to it a little bit more than when we're seeing veterans that we've seen 10 times a piece squaring off. And, there's less ways that you feel like the fight could work out. So I like this card a lot, man. There's some really exciting up-and-coming fighters on this card. Sean Brady, Adrian Yanez, and then we got a couple of Chinese fighters that had a decent showing, that they showed they could be in fun fights. It's going to be a good card. I mean, the main event is like, Tate Vieira, but then look below it. There's a lot of good stuff. There's some money-making opportunities. I'm looking forward to this one, man.
Yep, for sure. I do like a lot of these fights on the card, but y'all can please smash that like button. Me, Weezy, and everybody at Pub Sports would really appreciate that. Really does help out the channel and help us out as well. We're going to move into the next fight, and we have Lookboonmee going against Loopy Godinez. Luma, she is 25 years old, 5'1", with a 61-inch reach. Loopy Godinez, 28 years old, 5'2", with a 61-inch reach. So these are two of the smallest fighters in the division. I mean, 5'1" for Luma, 5'2" for Loopy, and then both with a 61-inch reach. That's just crazy, but they matched them up against each other. So this should be a really fun fight. But take a look at the last few fights. Luma Lookboonmee, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. I believe she made her debut against Alexander Albu, won that by decision. She lost to Angela Hill by decision. Very close fight there. She beat Jin Yu Fry by decision, and she beat Sam Hughes by decision as well. As far as Lupe Godinez, she lost a split decision against Jessica Penning. I personally scored that fight for her. She came out and looked phenomenal against Silvana Gomez Juarez and won by submission. And then she recently lost against Luana Carolina by decision. That was the 1 week turnaround. So I think we got to cut her some slack. And I think I was like one of the very few people that was actually picking Carolina in that fight. I did not bet her, which kind of hurts a little bit. But what I did bet was the over over 2.5 rounds. I think it was sitting at like minus 150. So I thought there was a lot of recency bias on Godinez going out there and starching Juarez, and ended up going to decision, ended up being close, but the size of Carolina was too much. And it was interesting because Lupe actually weighed in to that fight up a weight class, and she weighed in at like 121 pounds. And Carolina is somebody that's not small. She's like 5'6", 5'7". She's a pretty big fighter, and she did struggle with the height. She struggled with the strength of Carolina. I know a lot of people think that Carolina is a bum, but she's not really a bum. I mean, her takedown defense is good. Her striking's good. And it was just a really tough matchup, especially coming in on short notice, coming up a weight class. I think that was the biggest thing there. But now she's going back down to 115 against somebody her own size. So this fight's very interesting. I think Luma is going to have the striking advantage here. I really like the striking from Luma. I've been somebody that's really been high on her throughout her career. I love the volume. Great Muay Thai fighter. She's very strong as well. Very good takedown defense. Lupe, I'm kind of high on her as well. She's very strong. Her grappling's very good. Her striking's okay. She does throw with a lot of power. But yeah, this is a very, very good fight, Weezy. Looking forward to it. What are you looking at for this one?
Yeah, agreed. And I think both of these ladies are low-key more well-rounded than what people give them credit for. So we think of Lupe Godinez as a grappler. I mean, when we see that performance that she put on against Silvana Gomez Juarez, man, that was just an absolutely dominant grappling performance there. And then you see Loma, and she's put on some really nice striking performances, throwing a lot of volume and everything, but she mixes in the grappling as well. I mean, you look at Loma Lookboonmee in 4 fights, and we think of her as somebody that's been doing Muay Thai since she was 6 years old, literally hundreds of fights. She probably has fights that are on her record from before the age of 10, okay? So she's been everywhere striking, but look at this, 16 takedown attempts in 4 fights for Loma, and she's gotten 6 of them. She's actually getting takedowns at a higher percentage clip than Lupe is. So Loma's got some pretty good offensive and defensive grappling, and then people don't give Lupe Godinez enough credit for her hands. Go back and watch her against Vanessa Demopoulos. She's absolutely tearing her up in the boxing exchanges there too. So this is a low-key, higher-level fight than what I think people are expecting, seeing as Lookboonmee only has 4 UFC fights and Godinez only has 3. I think both of these ladies are pretty damn talented, and I think of this as a striker versus a grappler matchup. We've seen Lupe go to that game plan and use the wrestling, try to get the fight to the ground and use her grappling to finish fights. And we've seen Loma do the same, particularly in the Sam Page fight, getting the fight to the ground and working her top game. But she's also very dangerous on the feet, has great front kicks, great leg kicks, powerful hands when she throws them. This one for me is very close, but here's what I want to point out in the stats. So we call it striker versus grappler. Loma Lookboonmee lands 5.27 significant strikes a minute and only absorbs 3.13. So a positive 2.14 significant strike differential. So very good in the striking numbers. 58% accurate on her strikes, 55% striking defense. And then we see Godinez, she's getting hit more than she hits her opponents. Lands 2.16, absorbs 2.54. A little bit better on the defensive striking numbers for Godinez, but the striking accuracy not as good. So Loma's got a clear advantage, in my opinion, in the striking numbers. And then when we look at the grappling, what I want to take your attention to here is that Godinez is controlling her opponents 44.5% of the time, but only giving up 15% control time, which means that only 40% or about 39% of her fights, and this is Godinez, those fights are taking place at striking range. While for Lookboonmee, it's 68% of her fights are taking place at striking range. So it looks to me like which one of these fighters is going to be able to get their game plan off? Is Godinez going to be able to get this fight to the ground, keep this fight in control time positions for more than half the fight? Because that's the fight that she wins. While if Godinez isn't able to get the fight to the ground, isn't able to win minutes that way, we'll see Loma stuffing the takedowns, probably landing the bigger shots on the feet, and probably winning a decision there. This is one I do see going to decision, as we have 4 combined losses and only one of them has been inside the distance. If I see somebody finishing this fight inside the distance, I would say it would be Loopy, because I think her grappling is legit. And she's also, she's Mexican. Mexicans are tough. They're that's what they're known for. I mean, the Mexicans, the Hawaiians, these are not people that ever quit in a cage. So, I do see this fight going to decision. Maybe Loopy gets a decision, gets a submission here, as only one of these girls combined 4 losses has come inside the distance, and it was Loma getting subbed. So, this is a great fight, but I like Loopy's ability to be able to stick to a game plan. I think she's going to be able to win enough minutes on the ground here with her wrestling and top game and grappling in order to win this fight. But I do worry about the fact that she is taking this on short notice, once again, showing how tough she is, willing to step up at any time, any place, and fight anyone. At least this one isn't at 125 pounds, though. At least it's against somebody her own size. I'm picking Loopy Godinez to win by decision.
Yeah, I like it. It's just crazy to think about, like, everybody was on Loopy against Carolina up a weight class. Now it seems like a little bit of the hype of Loopy has kind of died down a little bit, which is weird because we got to cut her some slack. That was at 125 pounds against a very big Carolina. I want to see exactly how tall Carolina is. She seems a lot taller than 5'6", but still 5'6". And then as we have Luma, who is only like 5'1". So yeah, I really like Loopy in this fight, Weezy. And the reason being is, how I'm really big on Luma Lookboonmee, but we kind of take a look at some of her fights. She got taken down by Alexander Albu. She got taken down by a striker and Angela Hill. Angela Hill was able to control her for like a minute of that fight. She got taken down by Jinyu Fry, who doesn't have great wrestling. And then Sam Hughes, this is kind of what concerns me. Sam Hughes was able to control Luma for 6 minutes and 34 seconds of that fight. Sam Hughes. And she actually won the second round just by kind of holding Luma against the cage for 3 minutes and 2 seconds. And we go back to that Carolina fight with Loopy. Yes, she lost it clearly, but what she did do very well was she was relentless with the takedowns. She went for 15 takedowns. I love that. That's showing great fight IQ. And what she also did was she actually controlled Luana Carolina for 7 minutes and 37 seconds of that fight. She controlled a much, much bigger fighter, a 125er, a legit 125er that's huge for the division in her own right, and she controlled her for half that fight on short notice, and she weighed in at 121 pounds. Like, that's so impressive to me. But yeah, like you said, the striking, it's going to be Loma. I love her volume. She's going to have the striking advantage, but I feel like if Loopy comes in here with the exact same game plan she did against Carolina on short notice, just kind of grinding Luma against the cage, kind of like Sam Hughes did, and especially if she can get her down, if she can get Luma down, I feel like she's going to have a big advantage on the mat. So although I'm really high on Luma, I think this could be a very solid spot for Loopy Godinez. So yeah, give me Loopy here and give me Loopy to win by decision. We see the odds are somewhat close. We see Loopy opened up at -110. She's now -150. Luma opened up at plus or -110. She's now +130. And I think I might pull the trigger on Loopy here. The only problem is I don't know where the line's going to go. I see that on Tapology, like nearly 70% of people are picking Loma. Not sure why. I think people may be a little bit low on Godinez after her last performance. But again, I really think we need to cut her some slack coming up a weight class on less than a week's notice, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, give me Loopy here. I'm high on both fighters, but I feel like Loopy has the style in the game plan to come in here and present some problems, whether that's holding Luma against the cage and then taking her down especially. So yeah, give me Loopy here, and I actually like her a lot. The fight goes to decision, -320. Fight doesn't go to decision, +240. We see the over 2.5 rounds. The only fight on the card right now for Bet Online that has the over-unders. The over 2.5 rounds is -325. The under 2.5 rounds is +250. I just want to caution people. I know Nigel said in the chat that the over 2.5 rounds is a lock. Nothing is a lock. We saw Calvillo and Lee finish last time. We saw Bobby Green, Ally Quinta finish. So I would just be very careful laying like -300 on overs and stuff like that. So Weezy, any thoughts on the over-under? Any thoughts on the money line on either side?
Yeah, I mean, over 2.5 minus 325. There's no value on that. I'd rather just say, all right, let's see if Loopy gets a submission on the ground. I mean, you're getting plus 250. It's not bad. Maybe somebody slips on a banana peel. Maybe there's you know, uh, anything can happen. It's a fight, dude. I mean, Andrea Lee beat the shit out of Calvillo yesterday and made her quit on the stool after 2 rounds. I did not see that coming. Devin the Dude did. One of the guys in the chat, he was all over Andrea Lee, but I did not see that one coming. But yeah, I think the value actually here is on the under. I think it's going to decision, but I'm not betting minus 325. That's way too juiced.
Yeah, you can't bet that. You can't bet that. But yeah, I like Loopy here, and I'm pretty close to pulling the trigger. The only thing that kind of is stopping me is I'm just curious where the line's going to go, where the money's going to come in on. If I can get Loopy at a better price, that'd be awesome. But I'm not so sure yet. So I'll kind of wait and see. But that might be a potential bet of mine by maybe tonight even. Shout out to Dev the Dude. He's predicting a Loopy second round sub. So we'll see what happens there.
Oh, yeah, I like that. And hell, man, if she gets that, man, that's a nice little nug because she can get the sub. She's a good grappler.
Yeah, I'm actually predicting a Loopy sub as well. I kind of found it to be a hot take because Luma has been submitted before. And we saw that Loopy's very dangerous. So, yeah, give me Loopy by sub, but I'm just going to look at the money line there, not really look at a prop. But we'll keep moving on to the next fight. We have, this is probably for me like one of the toughest fights on the card to call. I thought originally I'd be, taking a shot on Rafa Garcia, but I'm just going to pass here. It's a very tough fight. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this one, Weezy. But we have Garcia, 27 years old, 5'7", with a 70-inch reach. Natan Levy, 30 years old, 5'9", with a 71-inch reach. We see that Natan Levy won on the Contender Series, got a submission. I want to say it was in the third round. And then now he's making his UFC debut, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Obviously, he is undefeated. And then Rafa Garcia, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He came in on short notice against Nazareth Hackbrass, and then he lost to Chris Grutzmacher. I know he screwed over a lot of people in that fight, including me. I think I had a bet on Rafa Garcia, and he was looking good early, but he kind of slowed down as the fight goes on. So originally I thought, hey, this might be a good buy low spot on Rafa Garcia. He kind of screwed a lot of people over. People may be low on him. And then I go and tape Natan Levy, and it's tough because he's fought like nobody great at all. The level of competition is very sketchy, but I really like what I see from this guy. The guy has great striking. The grappling's really good as well. I believe he's a purple belt in BJJ, and then his wrestling solid. Like, this is a very well-rounded guy. His cardio is good. Have seen him slow down before, but he's went to 3 rounds plenty of times. As far as Rafa Garcia, he's on the hittable side. He's a really good wrestler. It's a really close fight. I see why it's near a pick 'em here, but do you have any lean on this fight at all, Weezy? Because this is the one I'm struggling with the most.
Yeah, not really, dude. Levy's got 2 inches of height, 1 inch of reach, and he's a southpaw. So he's got a little bit of an advantage in the measurables, by my opinion. And then it's obviously going to be Garcia when it comes to the experiences. He's got twice as many pro fights as Levy. He's got about the same amount of cage time, but about 3.5 more years as a pro as well. And Garcia's been fighting good names on the regional scene. Guys like Esteban Payan is a former UFC fighter. Eric the Ghost Pepper Gonzalez just lost in the UFC to Jim Miller. Humberto Bandone, former UFC. And then when he gets into the UFC, he's fighting Nazrat and then Chris Grutzmacher. Well, Levy, only 6 professional fights. So there's not much information out there on Levy. We've got the Contender Series win over Shaheen Satana. That was there was no striking in that fight. 90% of that fight took place in control time positions. So Levy got both of his takedowns. He accrued a ton of control time in that fight, 77.56%. Got a late finish with a arm triangle. And then, so there's not a lot of information on these guys. But Rafa Garcia, 73% finish rate. So he's finished, 8 out of, is that 7 out of... Yeah, it's 8 out of 11 of his wins have come inside the distance, 1 by knockout, 7 by submission. So the guy's getting submissions. And then we see that Levy, in his 6 wins, 3 of them by submission, none by knockout. So it seems like both of these guys are going to be comfortable on the ground. They're both going to want to be in the ground exchanges unless one of them really does feel like the other one's better down there than the other. There's no way for me to know which one of those guys that would be. But I think Garcia's been fighting the better competition. I think he's got more experience. And the experience the measurables aren't enough for me to pick that. I'm not touching this fight. I rewatched Levy versus Shaheen Santana, but I got to go back and watch Garcia. The loss to Gritzenmacher is definitely that's concerning, but it's a way different fight than what this is going to be. Gritzenmacher is a pure boxer that doesn't shoot any takedowns. The Levy fight's going to be the complete opposite of that. Garcia so far has really lost to two kickboxers. How is he going to do against a grappler? That's going to be the question. I don't know, dude. What do you think?
Yeah, first I want to shout out the chat. Shout out to David saying, how's the dog? How's the dog, Weezy?
Oh, the dog is actually doing pretty well. He's got painkillers and he's got anti-inflammatories for the thing between the discs in his neck. But once he's on the drugs, he feels fantastic and wants to go full speed. He seems to be making a full recovery.
There we go. I'm glad to hear that. Capper saying Tapology is giving Levy a 4-inch reach advantage. The 71 is on Sherdog, right?
No, the 71's on UFC stats. That's where I always get the numbers from, because it's, I know that the guys at UFC stats are actually with a tape measure doing that. Everywhere else, they might just be able to tell what their reach is. So yeah, I always go to UFC stats when I get the official numbers for all these guys' stuff. So
yeah, I'd say UFC stats is probably the most consistent, right? In terms of getting it right.
And yeah, especially when it comes to like the reach numbers and things like that, because you will see some huge discrepancies there. Sometimes people lie about their reach on the regional scene. Yeah. I don't even think some of these guys have a tape measure. So they're like 77-inch reach. We believe you. Get out there. So, and then you come in and it's like 72. Wait, what the hell? And it's like Jairzinho Rosenstrike saying he's 6'4". He's not.
He's like 5'10".
I know, dude. I would tower over that dude, and he would kill me 7 times dead before I even hit the ground. So,
all right. Yeah, Levy actually opened up -150. He's now -111. Rafa Garcia opened up +130. He's now -109. So yeah, this is a pick 'em. And yeah, like I said, I really struggled with this fight because I was planning on potentially fading Levy here. Maybe giving Rafa Garcia another chance here, because you take a look at Rafa Garcia. I was kind of impressed with his debut against Nasrat Haqparast. He showed a lot of toughness, but that's really all he showed was toughness. He ate 99 strikes, was able to survive, won a decision, made it competitive at times. And then the Grutzmacher fight, he hurt Grutzmacher early on, ended up gassing out. A very close fight. He took down Grutzmacher 5 times. You take a look at his striking numbers, which are really concerning to me. Landing 4.13, absorbing 6.63 at a 51% striking defense. I don't like that. And then you take a look at Natan Levy. Like I said, I like a lot of the things I see from this guy. The striking's very good. The wrestling's pretty good, and the grappling's good as well. I feel like Rafa Garcia can get takedowns here. I have seen Levy taken down a lot. That's kind of what I was looking for in the tape. But the thing with Levy is he's very tricky off his back. He's very active as well. I've seen him get multiple sweeps and reversals. So even if Garcia does go down to the mat, I think he can get it there, but I'm not sure if he can either A, hold it there, or maybe, Levy can put him in some trouble there. So yeah, it's a very close fight. Kind of flip-flopping back and forth on this one. I think I'm going to side actually on the Natan Levy side, but it's a really close fight. I think it can go either way because Garcia has fought the much better competition, and really it's not even close. So tough fight. I'm going to take Levy as far as the pick, but I can tell you one thing. I'm staying far away from this fight. Like even in terms like the fight goes to decision, fight doesn't go. No strong lean one way or another. Fight goes to decision -165. Fight doesn't go +125. I kind of see it probably going to decision, but I'm not going to lay the -165 chalk. Any thoughts on the line? Any thoughts on the fight goes or fight doesn't go, Weezy?
Yeah, I mean, neither one of these guys has ever been finished. Levy's never lost. Garcia's only 2 losses, decision losses. Both of these guys, pretty good finishers, but you kind of got to figure, right, with Levy 3 submission wins, and with so we got 6, I think, for Garcia. Yeah, that if somebody's going to win this fight, it's going to be by submission. And Levy seems to be certainly very comfortable on the ground. God, yeah, I gotta look into Levy a lot more. I only saw the Shaheen Santana fight. He looked very impressive there. He dominated, but still, Garcia. I think what might be the biggest difference here is I think there's going to be a size difference here. Garcia is just not a big lightweight. He doesn't look like he cuts a lot of weight, but it looks like Levy's going to be bigger, stronger, and if he gets on top, I think he'll be in really good shape in this fight. I'm leaning him.
Yep, for sure. Big Steve with the dono saying 4-year bills after the last two cars. Not sure if that's a dig, but if it is, that's fine. Shout out to Big Steve for the dono and hanging out. If y'all can please smash that like button, 144 of you in here. Do appreciate y'all hanging out on a Sunday. We will move on to the next fight. This is probably one of my favorite fights on the card, Weezy. We have Tucker Lutz going against Pat Sabatini. We have Tucker Lutz, 27 years old, 5'8", with a 72-inch reach. Pat Sabatini, 31 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach. So Tucker Lutz is going to be 4 years younger, same height, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Tucker Lutz is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He won a couple times in the Contender Series. I think he went 2-0 in the Contender Series, both by decision. And then he came in and has made his UFC debut against Kevin Aguilar. And yeah, I was actually really impressed with Tucker Lutz. Like, this was a guy that went out there. He threw a ton of volume. I think he landed like near the 100 strikes or like close to that. So I was very impressed with him. He even took down Aguilar twice, which I like to see. Aguilar is typically a very good takedown defense. So that was good to see. So yeah, really impressed with Tucker Lutz in that fight. As far as Pat Sabatini, yeah, I like this guy a lot. This guy is an absolute beast. He made his UFC debut against Tristan Connolly, dominated the first 2 rounds, slowed down in the third, but still won that fight pretty convincingly. And then against Jamal Emmers, Jamal Emmers hurt some bad in the first round, like in the first minute. And then, Sabatini kind of flops to his back, and then Sabatini ends up submitting Jamal Emmers, and that's not an easy thing to do. Jamal Emmers is a very good fighter with a ton of experience. And doesn't Jamal Emmers have a win over Corey Sandhagen as well? So that win really impressed me for Pat Sabatini. So yeah, this is an interesting fight because you take a look at Sabatini. This guy is a phenom on the mat, a legit BJJ black belt. I believe he trains at the same camp as guys like Sean Brady, guys like Andre Petrosky. This guy is legit on the mat. And Tucker Lutz, he's a good grappler in his own right, but I got to give the grappling advantage to Pat Sabatini by a decent margin. The problem for me is the wrestling. On paper, Tucker Lutz, I don't believe he wrestled in college. He wrestled in high school. And then for Pat Sabatini, on paper, he went and wrestled in high school. And I believe he also wrestled D1 in college. But if we're looking at it, like Tucker Lutz, in my opinion, has the much better wrestling, whereas Pat Sabatini, I don't know if his wrestling is that great. But again, his grappling's phenomenal. So if this fight hits the mat in any type of way, Pat Sabatini is going to have a strong advantage. On the feet, I probably give the advantage to Tucker Lutz. I don't think it's like so far into his favor, but I really like the volume. I like the output's phenomenal, decent power as well. So yeah, it's an interesting fight. I mean, the question I have is Pat Sabatini going to get this fight down to the mat? If he does, I think he wins. I think he probably gets a sub. If he does not get this fight down to the mat, I think it's going to get very interesting, Weezy.
I'm really impressed with what I've seen from both of these guys so far. And in Sabatini's last fight against Jamal Emmers, I remember that was one of the fights where I was kind of like, on Tuesday, I liked Emmers. On Wednesday, I liked Sabatini. On Thursday, I liked Emmers. On Friday, I liked Sabatini. And then I settled on Sabatini because I said that fight was going to come down to fight IQ.
Yes.
We had seen Sabatini show fantastic fight IQ in his first fight against Tristan Connolly. He had easily won the first 2 rounds. He took the 3rd round off. But for a newbie making his UFC debut, to show that kind of knowing where he is on the scorecards and in the cage was really impressive to me. And then we had seen Emmers go out there and fight Giga Chikadze and not shoot a takedown for 7 minutes. And you say, I thought that fight was going to come down to fight IQ, and I was right on that one. Now we got a guy in Lutz who's a lot more well-rounded, and he's a good wrestler. He's a good striker. Very impressive 12-1 professional record, 67% finish rate. He's finished 8 of his 12 wins. He has been knocked out in his only loss. And I'm really, really impressed with Sabatini's fight IQ, with his wrestling. His striking is serviceable. And I like that he fights to his game plan and his strengths. You see a great grappler with a D1 division with wrestling background, and then you go and you look and you see 59% control time for Pat Sabatini, only 12% control time against. So this guy's fights are taking place in control time position 72% of the time, Brady. He's fighting to his best win condition. And Tucker Lutz is out controlling his opponents on the ground, despite the fact that his opponents have shot 2 more takedowns than Lutz has. Lutz is out controlling his opponents 29.56% to 11.96%. So, man, this is a great one, dude. Sabatini's a little more experienced. Tucker Lutz has got a couple inches of reach and is 4 years younger. Both these guys are great finishers, but it's Sabatini who's finishing a higher percentage of his wins and getting finished in a lower percentage of his losses. The striking differential numbers definitely going to Tucker Lutz here. Even the grappling numbers, I'd say, are very close here because Lutz is getting takedowns at a 63% clip, while Pat Sabatini's getting takedowns at a 16% clip. So it might even be Lutz who's able to get this fight to the ground better than Sabatini. Wow, what a good fight against two fantastic prospects. Renzo Gracie, Philly, stand up. You got two of your really best representatives on this card in Pat Sabatini and Sean Brady. Philly is going to be looking forward to this fight. I got to lean Pat Sabatini. The guy has just been incredibly impressive for me, but I can't bet him because I really think Tucker Lutz has got a lot going for him. He's a really well-rounded mixed martial artist. He's only 27 years old. I can't wait for this fight, dude.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This fight is so good. I'm really high on both guys here. I kind of find myself more on it being a very close fight. I'm actually going to side with Tucker Lutz. The reason being is, yeah, we brought it up. I mean, Pat Sabatini, a 16% takedown accuracy. And I kind of went back and watched some tape on Tucker Lutz, and his takedown defense looks really, really good. And when he has been taken down, he's able to pop right back up. If Pat Sabatini can get him down, I think he could have success. But again, that 16% takedown accuracy really does concern me. That one takedown coming against Tristan Connolly. Yeah, I like I said, I do like Lutz a lot. He has great volume. I like the volume. I like the cardio's decent. We did see him slow down a little bit in his last fight, but we also saw Pat Sabatini slow down in the Connolly fight. It's a very, very close fight. I feel like if Pat Sabatini gets his fight down to the mat, he'll have success. But if not, I really do like Tucker Lutz quite a bit on the feet. So, yeah, regardless, though, close fight, and the line does indicate it. We see that Pat Sabatini opened up as a minus 150 favorite. He went all the way down to minus 175. He's now back to minus 148. And then Tucker Lutz opened up plus 130. He's now plus 128. Looks like some money is coming in on the Tucker Lutz side. And I get it. I think it's a very close fight. Could really go either way, in my opinion. If Pat Sabatini is able to get the fight down to the mat, I think he'd have success. Or maybe Tucker Lutz takes down Pat Sabatini. Maybe Pat Sabatini catches him with something off his back. But I think if Tucker Lutz comes in here with a smart game plan of, using his wrestling defensively, keeping this on the feet, I feel like he can kind of pick apart Pat Sabatini for 3 rounds. But again, if this fight hits the mat at any point in time, Tucker Lutz could be in some trouble. Tucker Lutz could be in big trouble. So, yep, I'm going to take Tucker Lutz as far as a pick. Might bet it. I mean, depending on where the line goes, if this line keeps moving in favor of Sabatini, I see plus 140. Yeah, I kind of like Tucker Lutz in the spot. We see that the fight goes to decision is minus 170. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 130. I think if there is a finish, I'm kind of leaning it more to be on the Pat Sabatini side. Any thoughts on the line? Any thoughts on the fight goes or fight doesn't go?
Well, you were mentioning, that you like Lutz here, and Sabatini only 1 of 6 on his takedown attempts. And Tucker Lutz, I didn't mention this. He's got 85% takedown defense. He's successfully defended 11 of 13 takedown attempts against. So if you're on that Lutz side, that's something you can hang your hat on there, that Sabatini hasn't been accurate on his takedowns thus far in the UFC, and Lutz has been fantastic in defending them. So as far as the fight goes or doesn't go here, I'm thinking fight goes. These guys, even though they've been finished in 2 out of their 4 combined losses, both of these guys are incredibly tough. And I think they're very well matched. And I think that this could be a situation where it's the kind of fight where if Pat Sabatini isn't successful getting the fight to where he wants it on the ground, then it still could be a very greasy, very slow-paced fight because Pat Sabatini has shown a commitment to his game plan to get the fight to the ground where he's most comfortable. I think that even if he's not successful, that he will be shooting over and over and over again. I do see this fight going to decision.
Yep, I can agree with that. But yeah, I don't mind me some Tucker Lutz. Taking a look at the Tapology predictions, Pat Sabatini 72%. Tucker Lutz 28%. So lots of people on the Sabatini side. So yeah, curious to see where that line does go. So if you guys in the chat are saying we have the general hanging out, shout out to the general Alex Ramirez. We have a Cam, Pat all day. What's up, Brady and Weezy? What is up, Cam? Melon is saying, shout out to Melon, Sab is overrated after his last win. I wouldn't say that. Give me Lutz as a dog. I do agree with you as Lutz as a dog, though. Philip saying Pat is getting better on the feet. I think his striking is improving, more well-rounded. Kind of disagree with that. Tim saying Pat is levels better on the ground, and then Lutz is better levels better on the feet. I do agree with that as well. So yeah, anything else on this fight, Weezy, or you think we should move on?
Let's move on, man. But dude, that's such a great fight with two great prospects. I'm really looking forward to that one. I might purposely not bet on it just so I can sit back and enjoy and kind of like take notes and look at it really objectively as to which one of these guys might have a brighter future going forward, because it's looking pretty good for both of them.
Yeah, for sure. Probably one of my favorite fights on the card. We have MMA Locker Room as well. Brian hanging out. Shout out to you guys. Let's move on to the next fight. So we have Adrian Yanez going against Davey Grant. Adrian Yanez, 27 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Davey Grant, 35 years old, 5'8", 69-inch reach. Adrian Yanez, probably one of the most hyped prospects right now. This guy is very, very good. We have Yanez, who is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, has not lost in a while. He had a split decision win over Kyle Estrada, a knockout win on the Contender Series, made his debut against Victor Rodriguez with a nasty head kick knockout. He knocked out Gustavo Lopez, and then he knocked out Randy Costa. He did battle some adversity in the Costa fight, getting pieced up badly in the first round, and then Costa does what Costa does and just slowed down tremendously, and then Yanez was able to finish him in that second. As far as Davey Grant, yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed with Davey Grant. This is a guy that is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He lost by submission against Manny Bermudez. He won by decision against Gregory Popov. And then he comes out here and knocks out Martin Day in the 3rd round as a dog. And then he knocks out Jonathan Martinez in the 2nd round as a pretty big dog. And then he goes to a decision with Marlon Vera, winning the 1st round in that fight. But everybody wins the 1st round against Marlon Vera. But yeah, Davey Grant has came a long way. He's now 35 years old, which I do not like, but his striking is like looking really good. I went back and watched that Jonathan Martinez fight, and it was like fairly even in the 1st round. And then in the 2nd round, Davey Grant just started coming forward, and he was like touching up Martinez pretty badly, outlanding him by a ton. And then he like knocked out Martinez cold. So yeah, I think Davey Grant's his striking is very, very good. But Yanez, I think his striking is on another level. Yeah, very good fight here. I feel like it could play out closer than the line does indicate if there's not a knockout, but I'm kind of leaning Yanez knockout here. Really curious to your thoughts on this one, Weezy.
Yeah, for sure. So I like that little 1-inch reach advantage here, and the 8-inch or the 8-year younger Adrian Yanez here. And the reason I like the 8 years younger so much is because that even though Davey Grant is 8 years older and has been in the game almost 5 years more than Adrian Yanez, these guys have the same amount of pro experience. As a matter of fact, Adrian Yanez has more time in the professional cage than Davey Grant does. So usually you would see a prospect like Yanez here kind of like at an experience disadvantage, but he's not. And in addition to that, he's 8 years younger and he's got a 1-inch reach advantage here. And then we look at the finish rates, 78% offensively for Yanez, 85% for Davey Grant. And then we look at the combined losses. We got 8 of them. 4 of them have been finished inside the distance, but it's Davey Grant who's been finished by submission in 4 of his 5 losses. Adrian Yanez has never been finished in any of his losses. We go to the striking numbers. Both these guys land more than they absorb. Yanez lands 6.13, absorbs 4.8. Davey Grant landing 4.21, absorbing 3.25. The defensive numbers are similar, but it's Davey Grant who's been knocked down 3 times in 8 fights. Adrian Yanez has never been knocked down. And then if we look at the power numbers, my God, Adrian Yanez, 5 knockdowns in 4 fights, 129 significant strikes, 4 knockdowns have been landed in those 129. That is a knockdown per total significant strike average. It's almost 4%. So Yanez is showing next level power, and Grant has been knocked down. Grant has never been knocked out, but I got a feeling that it could be Adrian Yanez that's the first one to do it. If we look at the grappling numbers here, we get to see that Adrian Yanez is very comfortable on the feet. He has never attempted a takedown in his UFC tenure of 4 fights. Has had 5 takedowns attempted against him, which isn't a lot, but he does have 100% takedown defense. And we see for a guy that's as good of a striker as Yanez, over 94% of his 4 fights in the UFC have taken place at striking range. That's very important. This is a guy who's probably going to be better in the striking than Davey Grant is, and he has shown a very good ability to be able to keep it there. Now, on the other side, Davey Grant in 8 UFC fights has shot 26 takedown attempts. He's getting takedowns at a 46% clip. Very impressive. And is out-controlling his opponents 24% to 21%. His takedown defense hasn't been great at only 60%. However, we probably won't have to worry about that, as Yanez does prefer to be on the feet. 94% of Yanez's UFC tenure has taken place at striking range in the cage. So it's probably not likely that he's going to try to take down Davey Grant. Maybe it would be smart to do it with 30 seconds left in each round to try to seal a round if it's close. However, I do see this fight taking place on the feet. It will be Adrian Yanez with the volume advantage. It will be Adrian Yanez with the reach advantage, with the power advantage. How does Davey Grant win this fight? Landing a big shot, maybe out wrestling Adrian Yanez. But, you know, it's at 2.07 takedowns per 15 minutes. The possibility is there, but Yanez still has not been taken down in 4 UFC fights. That being said, Brady Huang, Victor Rodriguez, Gustavo Lopez, and Randy Costa not exactly known for their fantastic wrestling. Yeah, this should be Yanez if he's able to keep it on the feet. I like the youth. I like the fact that he's actually been in the cage more minutes as a pro than Davey Grant has. If we look at the level of competition that these guys have faced, that's going to be the biggest advantage here for Davey Grant, is not only the wrestling accuracy, but the fact that Davey Grant has fought the better level of competition here. He's fighting guys with winning records in the UFC with 7 total fights, while Adrian Yanez is largely fighting debutantes with less than 2 fights on their record. Davey Grant gets the advantage, in my opinion, with the grappling and the strength of schedule, but the tail of the tape, the pro experience, and especially the areas of the striking when we talk about volume, when we talk about accuracy, and when we talk about power, those are all firmly in Adrian Yanez's hands. This is going to be a tough row to hoe for Davey Grant, man. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I like Yanez as well. We do see that he is a big favorite. Adrian Yanez opened up as a minus 240 favorite. He's currently minus 250. And then Davey Grant opened up plus 205. He's currently plus 210. I expect the line to get wider and wider. I think Yanez is going to be a very popular parlay piece. I'm not going to play it myself. I thought potentially about playing Yanez. Went and watched a tape on him. I tried to see how good his takedown defense is. I went and watched the Miles Johns fight, which is a pretty good indicator, I think. Miles Johns is a very good wrestler. Johns was able to take him down here or there, but he was able to stuff the majority of takedowns from Miles Johns there. So I did like what I saw in terms of the takedown defense. And supposedly he doesn't use it a lot in his fights, but Yanez is a black belt in BJJ for what it's worth. On the feet, yeah, I think I guess the biggest thing for me is Yanez's durability. This guy's very, very durable, whereas Davey Grant, we have seen him dropped in plenty of fights. Never been knocked out, though, but I think that could potentially change here. Yanez throws a ton of volume, has a ton of power to go with it. Davey Grant, he is 35 years old. 35 years old as a bantamweight is something I don't like to see. I guess my only concern is if Yanez does not knock him out, I actually think it's going to be a little bit more competitive than the line does indicate. But, yeah, I just see Yanez catching him at some point in time. I'm going to be looking for the Yanez knockout prop potentially, depending on what the line is, but I have a feeling it's not going to be great. So I think I'm just going to pass here. I think Yanez wins. I think if you are doing a parlay, I think he's fine. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people are counting out Davey Grant, and I get it, but people have been counting him out against Martin Day as a dog. He knocked him out. People counted him out against Jonathan Martinez as a dog. He knocked out Jonathan Martinez. And a lot of people are counting him out here. So he's not a scrub. I don't know why people think he's a scrub. He's definitely not.
No.
I think this is like the best version of Davey Grant as well. His strikings came a long way. So, but I think Yanez wins. I think Yanez is the younger guy. I think that's huge. And I think he does knock out Davey Grant for the first time in his career. Somebody in the chat was also saying maybe a potential club and sub as well. Davey Grant has actually been submitted, what was like 3 or 4 times in his career?
4 times in his 5 losses. So, yeah, I mean, like this guy's only got 5 losses and 4 of them are by submission. So he has been a guy that has – and we saw it. Remember, we both had inside the distance bets on Marlon Vera against Davey Grant. Dude, Davey Grant's seriously tough, dude. That dude has got no quit in him. You have to submit him to get him out of there because, dude – Vera was beating the shit out of him. Do you remember how brutal that 3rd round was? There was blood everywhere.
Yeah.
it was a mess of a fight. And Davey Grant never once quit. So yeah, I kind of feel like either you shut this guy's lights off, or the only way you're finishing him is by submitting him. So yeah, I could see this fight going the distance. Actually, Davey Grant's really tough, but Adrian Yanez has got next level power for this division, and you just don't want to be betting on a 35-year-old bantamweight.
Yep, Ice Wallow. I think first time we've seen him in here. I remember when Yanez was getting pieced up by the jab. Yeah, that Costa fight's kind of concerning me. Like, what if Costa had a gas tank? Yanez would have lost.
He doesn't though. That's the thing. It's like you can look fantastic in the first round if you're throwing everything into every punch. If you're throwing all your kicks full force with the intention of punting your opponent's head into the upper deck. Well, you just can't fight like that for 15 minutes.
If he could, he'd be a problem if Costa could fight for 15 minutes.
Yeah, you got that right, man. But I mean, he would have to change his style to be able to go 15 minutes, because you can't just be balls out. You can't throw 100% power into every single strike that you throw and think that you're going to last for 15 minutes. It's not how the human body works.
Oh yeah. Only person that can put up with that output is like a Max Holloway. He can get away with it.
Yeah, Max Holloway, a couple other guys that have just got genetically freakish conditioning, but they're you can count them on one hand, those type of fighters.
Oh yeah. People saying Yanez has no head movement. Yeah, the striking defense of Yanez kind of concerns me a lot. He does eat a lot of shots, but I think he's very, very durable. I'd be shocked if Grant did knock him out. Yeah, what is this? Can we talk about the Joanne Woods name change? Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. I don't even know how the hell do you take off the first 6 letters of your last name. I mean, I don't even know how that's possible, dude. First Rick Glenn wants to be called Ricky Glenn, and then now this. I don't know. Has the whole world gone crazy, Brady?
The whole world must have went crazy. God. Did we didn't touch on the fight goes or fight doesn't go, right? Did we?
No, but it's pretty juiced to the fight doesn't go.
Yeah, minus 185, which I don't love that.
And what's interesting is, so Yanez has never been finished, and Yanez spending 94% of his fights at striking range, right? How is he going to submit Davey Grant fighting like that, right? Because he's probably not. This fight is probably going to be a striking battle. So the fight goes to decision at plus 145 is actually kind of intriguing, because Yanez would have to be the first guy to knock out Grant in order to make that happen. And we know that some of even Yanez's regional scene fights have went the distance, 5 rounds even. So the plus money on the fight goes here is actually kind of interesting, and you could hedge that with a Yanez inside the distance bet.
Yep, like you said, it had to be the first time that Yanez or Grant would be knocked out. And same thing with Yanez. Yanez, both guys that have been knocked out. The only thing that's happened was Grant getting submitted 4 times. So I guess that's the only thing I'd be worried about there, though. But we'll move on to the next fight.
Wait a second, Brady. Tristan brought up a good thing. So it's not just Joanne Calderwood changing her name to Joanne Wood. She's married her coach, whose last name is Wood. So she didn't want to be Joanne Calderwood Wood, because there's just too many Woods. So it's just Wood now. And actually, that does make sense. My apologies to Joanne Calderwood. I jumped the gun there and had my Greek temper kind of got the best of me.
I mean, I'm still going to call her Joanne Calderwood. It just sounds so I can't do it. It's going to take some time. Just like Nina Ansarov, Nina Nunez. She's always going to be Nina Ansarov to me.
Yeah, no, I hear that, dude. And I'm with you there.
All right, so we'll move on. 154 of you in here. If y'all can please smash that like button. I think last time we checked, we had 69, which would be cool to get to 100. That'd be awesome by the time we get out here. But we have next we have Joanne Calderwood or Joanne Wood going against Taila Santos. We have Calderwood, 35 years old, 5'6" with a 65-inch reach. Taila Santos, 28 years old, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. Joanne Wood, 2-3 in her last 5 fights. She lost to Chukagan by decision. She beat Andrea Lee by split decision, lost by submission against Jennifer Maya, won by knockout against Jessica Ai, and then lost by decision against Lauren Murphy. I bet that Calderwood by decision prop, and I really thought she won. I thought she won the first round and the third. I thought she lost the second, but you can't win them all. As far as Taila Santos, she made her UFC debut against Mara Morella Barella. She lost that by decision. And remember last time we were on here, Weezy, we were talking about the Taila Santos fight. I told everybody, I tried to warn you guys, if you are taping this fight, do not go back and watch the Mauro Morella-Barella fight. That is a completely different fighter. In that same week, I heard people betting Roxanne Modafferi and bringing up the Mauro Morella-Barella fight. You can't look at that fight because that fighter that fought Mauro Morella-Barella is nowhere near the fighter she is now. She went out there, she starched Molly McCann, dominated her for 15 minutes. She dominated a black belt in Jillian Robertson for 15 minutes. And then she dominated poor Roxy for 15 minutes as well, almost finishing Roxy, a very tough Roxy. She hurt her multiple times. Taila Santos, she's the real deal. I think she's always going to get shat on for her performance against Mauro Morella-Barella. But again, that was her UFC debut. She was talking about, being very nervous, having a lot of anxiety in that fight. And it did show. So, again, if you are researching this fight, I'd encourage you not to tape the Mauro Morella-Barella fight, because then you might be tempted to bet on Joanne Calderwood here, just like people were tempted to bet on Roxanne Modafferi. And I can tell you that it's probably not going to end well. I really like Santos in this fight. I think she has a lot of upside. I love her game. She's huge. She has a 68-inch reach. She's very strong as well. She's going to have the strength advantage. She has good striking, decent power. I will give Joanne Calderwood the striking advantage. I love Calderwood striking. Her volume's amazing. That's something that I really like about her. The problem is she doesn't have a lot of pop on her punches. I think Santos is going to hit harder. But I think the biggest difference in this fight is going to be the ground game. Santos is, like I said, very strong, very good takedowns. Her grappling's good. And Calderwood has struggled at times at getting taken down and being held down. And I think it's a pretty easy fight for Santos. I know people are going to argue and say the line's off, and maybe it is because you take a look at the level of competition. But I do not see Santos losing this fight. So give me Santos here. Are you seeing it kind of the same, Weezy, or are you giving Calderwood a little bit more of a shot than I am?
So, you can't overlook the fact that Santos is 7 years younger and has a 3-inch reach advantage. So big measurables advantage there. And then you say, okay, but Calderwood's been around longer. She's fought the better level of competition. But then look at the number of pro fights. Santos only has 2 less fights than Joanne Calderwood, about 50 less minutes in the cage, and has been a pro for about 4 less years, but she's been a lot more active. She's fought about 25% of her career at the UFC level, while for Calderwood, it's about 2/3 of her career at the UFC level. So, almost 75 more minutes in the pro cage, in the UFC cage for Calderwood. So Calderwood's going to have probably, an advantage in the strength of schedule, an advantage in the experience. When we look at the finishing numbers, it's going to be Santos who's the better finisher. When we look at the striking, you see Joanne Calderwood landing 2.25 more significant strikes a minute than she absorbs. That's very impressive. Not a lot of power. 3 knockdowns in 13 UFC fights for 0.3%. And then we see that Santos is landing 1.54 more significant strikes a minute than she absorbs, which is very good. Just as accurate as Calderwood, just as powerful. And we look at the striking defense, and then you see a 52.5% striking defense for Calderwood and a 64% striking defense for Taila Santos. So, on the feet, it's going to be Calderwood throwing more volume. As PayPal said, she kind of touches you and racks up a bunch of significant strikes, but she's not really hurting you necessarily. Here's the thing. Let's say that Santos doesn't like how it's going on the feet and she wants to change the position of the fight, right? You look at somebody like Taila Santos and look at the efficiency in the grappling numbers that are on the screen here. Taila Santos has gotten 13 of 15 takedown attempts. That might be the highest takedown percentage in the UFC with somebody more than 10 takedown attempts. Okay? I've never seen one that high. 2.6 takedown attempts for 15 minutes. Taila Santos is out-controlling her opponents at like a 3-to-1 ratio, 43% to 14.5%. In addition to that, if Taila doesn't want to get taken down, she's showing 89% takedown defense in her own right. So despite the fact that her opponents have shot 3 more takedowns against her than she's shot against them, Taila Santos is still out-controlling her opponents at a 3-to-1 ratio. That's scary. That's the sign of somebody who can win minutes whenever they want by changing the position of the fight, whether it be keeping the fight standing when their opponent is not comfortable standing, or whether it be taking the fight to the ground when their opponent is comfortable standing. And that's what I'm looking at here for Santos. The striking numbers are close on the feet. Joanne throws more volume, But other than that, all the other numbers are very similar. And the number that jumps off the page is the 64% striking defense for Santos compared to the 52% striking defense for Calderwood. And then, so Calderwood has fought the better level of competition here, but really that might be her only advantage in this spot, because it's going to be Taila who's younger. It's going to be Taila who's longer. It's going to be Taila who's the better finisher. It's going to be Taila who's the more efficient grappler here. And she's just, really hotter right now. We're talking about a 3-fight win streak here. McCann, Robertson, Modafferi. That's the meaty part of the curve of the division right there. Those are good wins. Not as good as some of the ones that Calderwood has, but the recent wins for Calderwood, unanimous win by decision over Jessica I, and then a split decision win over Andrea Lee. But then the losses to Maya Chukagian and Murphy. I also like Taila Santos here. I think her minute winning ability is really going to be right there on Front Street for everybody to see. If she doesn't like how it's going on the feet, she'll take it to the ground. If Joanne doesn't like how it's going on the feet, she could take the fight down. She's been really good with her takedown attempts. But let's face it, Taila Santos with 89% takedown defense, she might have a really hard time getting Taila to the ground. I see Taila being the better minute winner here. I think the line is pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think it might be a hot take this week, but I agree. I think the line is accurate, and I think the line's only going to get wider. I see Santos is now pushing minus 350 on some books. You can get her as good as minus 290, and I'm really tempted to lay the chalk on Taila Santos here. I know you might call me crazy, but I really do like her in this spot. Santos opened up minus 180. Would have loved that line. She's now minus 350. We see that Calderwood opened up plus 155, and she's currently plus 285. And yeah, I like Santos in this fight quite a bit. I mean, just seeing how dominant she's been. I know people in the chat are shitting on her for not finishing Roxanne, but she was actually one of the 2 people to ever knock down Roxanne Modafferi. That's pretty impressive to me. Dominating Roxy in that fight, outlanding her 55 to 18, controlling her for 8 minutes of that fight. That was a really impressive performance. I mean, Roxy, yes, she's like 40 years old, but she's no scrub. She's a veteran of the sport. And then going out there and dominating a legit black belt, a very dangerous black belt in Jillian Robertson, controlling her for nearly 13 minutes of a 15-minute fight, and then going out there and surprising a lot of people, including me, against Molly McCann, taking her down 5 times, controlling her for 8 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, you take a look at Joanne Calderwood. I do give Calderwood the striking advantage. She's going to be landing more volume. I think Santos is going to be landing the harder shots, but I think the big advantage for Santos is going to be getting this fight down to the mat. We saw Lauren Murphy in the second round. She took down Joanne Calderwood, was able to control her for the whole round, 4 minutes and 15 seconds. We go back, we see that, Jessica I was able to take her down. We saw that Jennifer Maya, submitted her on bottom. We saw that Andrea Lee took her down 3 times. Ariana Lipsky took her down once. Ferreira took her down once. Calvillo, that bum Calvillo we saw last night, took her down twice. Jessica Andrade took her down twice. So she can be taken down. 63% takedown defense. And we see it right there in the stats. She can be controlled as well. See, I think it's a really good spot for Taila Santos. I think she's the real deal. And again, I would just completely disregard the Mara Morella fight, because you go back and look at that version of Santos and compare it to the version we see now, and it's just night and day. We see that the fight goes to decision is going to be juiced, I'd imagine. Yes, it is, minus 305. The fight doesn't go to decision, it's plus 225. I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty dominant Santos decision with some wrestling and grappling, Weezy.
Yeah, that's, it's hard to see. Santos hasn't finished anybody yet thus far in the UFC. She was finishing on the regional team, but not really in the UFC. And Calderwood's a veteran. She's been around the block a ton of times. She's fought a ton of tough girls. In the UFC, Joanne Calderwood has been finished 3 times in her 6 losses, but they're all by submission. And Taila Santos is really a lot more of a knockout artist than she is a submission artist. So, yeah, I mean, that fight goes to decision. It's a women's fight. It's horribly juiced, but I don't really see a reason to be on the fight doesn't go there. I don't think it's juiced enough in order to get me on the other side of that bet. So it's probably a stay away on the time props for me.
Yep, for sure. Agree there. If I was doing a parlay, I think Santos would be in it. She's probably my favorite pick of the card. I think her and Yanez are. But we'll keep moving on up the card. We have Kung Ho Kong going against Rani Yahya. We were supposed to see this fight like a couple months ago, I think. We have Kong, who is 33 years old, 5'9", with a 73-inch reach. Rani Yahya, 36 years old, 5'6", with a 67-inch reach. So Kong's going to be the bigger fighter. a 3-inch height advantage, and a 6-inch reach advantage. And he's also going to be 3 years younger. Rani Yahya, 36-year-old bantamweight, not good. But Kang Ho Kang, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Had a submission win over Guido Canetti, a decision loss to Ricardo Ramos, a submission win over Ishihara, a decision win over Brandon Davis, and then a decision win over Liu Pingwan. As far as Rani Yahya, a submission over Joanne, a submission over Sanders, a decision over Simone, a decision over draw against Barzola, and then a submission win over Ray Rodriguez. So, yeah, it's been a while, right, since we have seen Kang Ho Kang in the cage. Rani Yahya fought a couple months ago. So, yeah, interesting fight here. We broke it down like a couple months ago, but, Kang's probably the more well-rounded fighter, probably the better striking, the better cardio. He's younger. Probably the better wrestling as well. But Rani Yahya is an absolute wizard on the mat. But Kang's a good grappler in his own right. So I think if Kang kind of minds his P's and Q's on the mat, I think it's a pretty winnable fight for him. But yeah, you never count out Rani Yahya. He's very dangerous. So what are you looking at for this fight, Weezy?
Yeah, first of all, Yahya is a 36-year-old bantamweight. That's a big red flag. And Kang's old too. He's 33. But a 6-inch reach advantage and a 3-inch height advantage tells me that if Ho Kang wants to win a striking battle here, he absolutely should be able to. The measurables are there. It's Yahya who has 13 more professional fights and about 130 more minutes in the professional cage. He's also got 9 more UFC fights, does Yahya, and almost 100 more minutes in the UFC cage. So definitely more experienced. But, the experience can kind of work against you when you're fighting another fighter who's also experienced. I mean, you can't call Ho Kang inexperienced when he has 26 professional fights and 9 of them have been at the UFC level. And then the finish numbers, Rani Yahya only finishes with submissions. 78% of his career wins by submission and 7 of his 12 UFC wins by submission. And Ho Kang is a finisher by submission in his own right at 65%, and he also gets 12% knockouts. If we look at the 18 combined losses for these guys, so a huge sample size here, we see that 5 of the 18 fights have finished inside the distance in their losses. So this is one that's going to be interesting for me for the fight goes to decision, because anything better than minus 275 would be something worth looking at if you handicap that line based on the combined losses. And when we've got 18 combined losses between 2 UFC fighters, that's a huge sample size. So I feel really good here about the fight doesn't go. Both these guys are great grapplers. And you know what? I mean, Yahya has been submitted once in his life, and Ho Kang has been submitted once in his life, and that's in 65 combined fights. So I don't like either one of these guys getting a submission here based on the trends. If we look at the striking numbers, we see that they're very low output because both of these guys spend a ton of time in control time positions. So we don't see a lot of significant strike value. We don't see a lot of significant strikes landing, a lot of volume, any of that kind of stuff. Ho Kang actually lands more than he absorbs by a very small margin, and has shown pretty good striking defense, up at about 58.73%. Ho Kang has shown some power, but has been knocked down once as well. And Rani Yahya, 37% striking accuracy, lands 0.13 more significant strikes a minute than he absorbs. Not as good defensively and a little more chinny. I mean, just on the striking numbers on the aggregate, I'm going to go with Kang as having the advantage here. And then we look at Ho Kang, and in the grappling numbers, his takedown accuracy is almost 60%. He's getting 2.53 per 15 minutes. He's averaging over a submission attempt per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents 46% to 16%. Very impressive. And Yahya, not quite as efficient with his wrestling. He only gets his takedowns at a 34% clip, but he's averaging, about 6 takedown attempts per fight, and he's getting 2.86 per 15 minutes. He's out-controlling his opponents 38% to 28%. So Ho Kang against his opponents has been a little more efficient with the grappling. He gets his takedowns at a higher percentage. He defends takedowns at a higher percentage, and he gets controlled less of the time. But when you see that 26% takedown defense for Yahya, that's usually not an indication of bad takedown defense as much as it is as this guy just wants to be on the ground. I mean, if you add up the for and against control time numbers over an 18 fight sample size for Yahya, you're talking about, less than a third of his fights take place at striking range. So he's going to do whatever he has to do to get the fight into the grappling realm. And, Ho Kong is absolutely experienced and comfortable there. If we look at the strength of schedule, it's Kyung Ho Kong all day. He's fighting the more experienced competition and the better win-loss competition. He's getting better wins, and his losses are better. So somehow, Rani Yahya has managed to get 12 UFC wins without beating one impressive fighter. It's kind of crazy. I do this every time, Brady, but I feel like it has to be done. I have to read the list of names that Rani Yahya has beaten. And it's going to be you guys going, who the hell is he? Over and over and over again. I'm just having a hard time finding it. Let's see. It's really a list of a bunch of bums. So his first UFC win back in 2011, Mike Brown, 2-4. Then Josh Grisby, 0-4. Then Mizuto Hirota, 1-5. Then Josh Clopton, 0-2. Johnny Bedford, 2-3. Masanori Kanehara, 2-2. Matthew Lopez, 2-4. Michinori Tanaka, 2-3. Henry Briones, 1-4. Russell Doan, 3-5. Luke Sanders, 3-5. Ray Rodriguez, 0-3. Oh my God, Brady. 12 wins in the UFC, not one of them against a guy with a winning record. Only one of those 12 wins against a guy with a 500 record. I mean, it's almost mathematically impossible to have that easy of a run in the UFC. And I mean, he's losing to Ricky Simon, Joe Soto, Tom Ninamaki, and Chad Mendez. So, you got to believe that this is going to be Ho Kong here. He's younger. He should be able to keep this fight on the feet if he wants it to, where he'll have a 6-inch reach advantage. He's really good on the ground as well. So I think he can actually hang down there with Yahya and not necessarily lose a ton of minutes. But I think he'll be able to keep the fight standing for a good amount of time, keep Yahya at range, maybe counter him. I think Ho Kong should win this fight, dude. How do you see it?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that's a solid matchup for him. We do see the line is really close here. Yahya opening up -130, and then Kang Ho Kong opening up Rani Yahya opened up -130. He's now -112, and then Kang Ho Kong opening up +110. He's now -108. We don't have any lines on the fight goes or fight doesn't go. But yeah, I do like Kang Ho Kong here. I don't know if I'm going to bet it though. Any thoughts on that line? Oh, Weezy left, so we'll talk to the chat. I bet you expect me to talk a little bit longer. So we have, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Mike Brown, legit. Yeah, we're talking about the list of shame there. Dustin Poirier, Korean Zombie, Dom Cruz, and Yahya still holding it down for the WEC. Yes, sir. Yahya fighters that he fought, some of them are no longer with the UFC. Yeah, a lot of them, right? DXJC kind of a little bit upset in the chat here. I see. Imagine calling Mike Thomas Brown a bum because he was 2-4 in the UFC. Weezy, you're back.
I am back. Yeah, I had to fill up the water here. Yeah,
my bad. I should have talked about it a little bit longer. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike Brown had a bum record in the UFC, which is 2-4, and he was a champion prior to that in what was it? That wasn't Strikeforce. It was the thing that was prior to the UFC that was only doing the lower divisions. And I know Mike Brown was a champion, but he's 2-4 in the UFC. And that fight happened over 10 years ago. So, yeah, I mean, Yahya's old now. Sorry. It's just, age is a fact. I mean, I can't help that, you guys. I can't help the fact that this guy's got 12 fucking wins, and not one of them is against a guy that with more wins than losses in the UFC. Don't blame your Uncle Weezy for that. That's mathematically impossible. Find me one other guy, Brady, in the UFC that's had 12 wins, 12 of them, and not one of them is a guy who has more wins than losses in his UFC tenure. You're going to be looking for a while, I promise you.
It's not your fault.
It's not my fault. I mean, I will take the blame for a lot of shit. Like my picks last week, my fault. I can't blame them on anyone else. this you can't blame on your Uncle Weezy. I'm sorry.
It's not your fault. He's a 36-year-old Bantam, huh? All right. Anyway, yeah, but I was gonna ask you thoughts on the line. I don't know if you heard, but we have it about a pick 'em here. Ronnie Yahya -112, -108 for Kang Ho Kong.
Yeah, I guess I go with Ho Kong, but it's not like Ho Kong's been beaten, like the studs of the UFC either. It's just when you look at the metrics next to each other, he's beating a little bit better competition. They have about 1.7 more fights on the aggregate and about a 0.3 better win-loss ratio. So, but yeah, Ho Kong, the recent wins, Ping Yang Lu, no. Brandon Davis, who got starched by Batgarel in his last fight, Teruto Ishihara no longer there, and Guido Canetti, who makes Ronnie Yahya look like a spring chicken. Yeah, it's not great on either side. So I think I'm going to be staying away. But yeah, at least Ho Kong has beaten one guy with a winning record.
Yep, DXJC saying great bias, but I don't think we're being biased. Like, I don't have any money on this fight.
I don't have any money on this fight either. I don't know how statistics can be biased.
Yeah, I mean, good luck on your Yahya bet. Glad you pick and choose which one of my comments to pull up and ignore entirely. Well, cool it down a little bit, DXJ. I know you're in here every week. We're not trying to fight with you or anything like that. If you're on Yahya, that's fine. We're just picking out the facts. I mean, they're facts. So we'll move on to the next fight. We have a very good one in a co-main event. Sean Brady, Michael Chiesa. We have Chiesa, 33 years old, 6'1", with a 75-inch reach. Sean Brady, 28 years old, 5'10", with a 72-inch reach. Michael Chiesa is going to be 5 years older, have a 3-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage as well. We see that Michael Chiesa is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Carlos Condit, submission win. Diego Sanchez, decision win. Rafael dos Anjos, decision win. Neil Magny, decision win. And then a Vicente Luque submission loss. I think that was my biggest hit of the year, plus 1,400. Vicente Luque by submission, probably the most excited I've been all year. We have 5-0 for Sean Brady in his last 5 fights. We have a decision win over Court McGee in his debut, a decision win over Ismail Nardiev. We have a submission win over Christian Aguilera, and a submission win over Jake Matthews. What I will say, Weezy, is this is going to be the toughest test of Sean Brady's career, and I'm curious to see if he can pass it. So Michael Chiesa, he's a very good grappler, very good wrestler. He's huge for the division as well. And Sean Brady, I really like this guy. His striking is decent. I think he's going to have the striking advantage in this fight. He's a black belt in BJJ as well. He's legit pretty much everywhere. So, yeah, good fight here, Weezy. What are you looking at for this one?
Damn good fight, man. It's like grappler against grappler here. And you got a guy in Chiesa who, over a 16-fight sample size in the UFC has been in control time positions about 66% of the time. So that's about, that's a ton of time in grappling positions. He's absolutely comfortable there. And then we see Brady in his own right in a 4-fight sample size. He's in control time positions about 41% of the time, but he's out controlling his opponents at like a 12-to-1 ratio, or 11-to-1. We'll say 11-to-1. But either way, both of these guys are dominating people on the ground. You got Chiesa with a 53% takedown accuracy. We got Brady with a 60% takedown accuracy. Brady has showed 100% takedown defense thus far in the UFC, and Chiesa has shown 68% takedown defense. But I don't think Chiesa necessarily minds getting taken down sometimes. He absolutely wants to fight on the ground. He's most comfortable grappling. This guy has been 16 fights in the UFC, right? And he's only landed 287 significant strikes as Chiesa. So that's a really good indication that this guy is very comfortable only grappling, and his striking is deficient. Now, Sean Brady, on the other hand, I mean, his striking isn't knocking anybody's socks off either. This is a guy whose wrestling and grappling has been the way that he's been winning fights. 29% win rate by sub, 21% by knockout. But, Sean Brady only landing 1 knockdown in his 4 UFC fights. Neither one of these guys has ever been knocked down, which is very interesting. The experience obviously going with Chiesa. The strength of schedule here obviously goes with Chiesa. I think this is very close on the feet, and I think it's very close grappling. But the problem is that Sean Brady is just yoked. He's so strong. He's so physical. Chiesa being a former lightweight, but he doesn't look like a former lightweight. He looks like he belongs here at welterweight, and he's really kind of filled out his body, and he looks like a big welterweight now, does Chiesa. So I don't know if Brady's, muscle advantage here is going to play anything for him, if it's going to make him any better than Chiesa, because Chiesa's longer. He's a southpaw. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage, a 3-inch height advantage here. He's got the experience advantage. It's a huge step up in competition for Sean Brady. But my God, Sean Brady undefeated, 14 consecutive wins, looking like a world beater. So the stats are just telling you it's going to be Chiesa because it's close everywhere, but that experience advantage, that measurables advantage, and really just the amount of time in the UFC cage, over 100 more minutes in the UFC cage, over 12 more fights in the UFC cage here for Chiesa, and about 6 more years as a pro. It's got me leaning Chiesa because I would feel a lot more comfortable betting on Brady or picking Brady here if the case was that if Brady was better on the feet, that I felt like he could keep it there for more than half the fight. But I don't really see that being the case. Chiesa knows who he is. He's a grappler first, and I don't think he's going to be afraid to grapple with Sean Brady here. I'm going to pick Chiesa for now, but I've really got to look further into it.
Yeah, this is a tough fight. I mean, I went and watched all the tape possible on Sean Brady. What I looked for was his takedown defense. I think that's pretty important here. In the UFC, it is 100%, but 6 of those did come from Court McGee, and then the other one came from Nardiev, I believe. Was able to stuff all 7 of them, and then went and watched the fights outside of the UFC, and have not seen him taken down yet. This is going to be kind of a fight where I think I'm just going to sit this one out. I'm going to watch this fight. And I think it's going to answer a lot of questions I have about Sean Brady. How good is his takedown defense? Because I really don't know how good it is. And if Chiesa can take him down, would it shock me if Chiesa was able to go out there, take down Sean Brady, and control him for minutes of this fight? No, I would not. Chiesa went out there and controlled Neil Magny for nearly 25 minutes. Went out there and controlled Rafael dos Anjos for nearly 15 minutes. Diego Sanchez, we controlled Carlos Condit, submitted him. So. And yeah, like you said, the level of competition is just night and day for Chiesa, fighting guys like Luque, guys like Magny, RDA, Sanchez, Kevin Lee, Beneil Dariush. He submitted Beneil Dariush. Like, this guy is no walkover at all. I know he got lost in his last fight by submission against Luque, but Luque is a guy that's on a serious roll here. Where you have Sean Brady, he's out there beating Court McGee, who's towards the end of his career. He's beating Ismail Nardiev, who I liked, but he's not in the UFC anymore. He got cut. He's beating Christian Aguilera, who is, I don't know if he's been cut yet, but he will be. And then he beat Jake Matthews there. So yeah, like you said, Weezy, this is going to be a huge, huge, huge step up in competition for Sean Brady. And we do see he's the favorite, and rightfully so, right? Like, there's a lot of hype on this guy. And I think the line's going to keep getting wider and wider, but I can't get to a Sean Brady bet. I'm actually going to pick him here, though, but I don't think I'm going to be betting Sean Brady. Like I said, I'm going to sit back and watch this one. I think a lot of questions will be answered. I think we're going to see, how good Sean Brady really is in this fight. This is a great, great test. I love this fight. Sean Brady opened up -140. He's now -152. Michael Chiesa opened up +120. He's now +132. And like I said, I think this line does get wider and wider. Lots and lots of hype on Sean Brady, and rightfully so. The guy's a beast. But, Michael Chiesa is the more experienced fighter, and it wouldn't shock me at all if he pulled off the victory. So I'll take Sean Brady as far as a pick. From a betting perspective, I'm staying far away from this one. Fight goes to decision, +105. Fight doesn't go to decision is -145. I'm kind of leaning towards the fight goes at plus money, but I think I'm just going to stay away from this fight as a whole. Any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on the fight goes or fight doesn't go?
I would say fight goes on this one. Both these guys really good grapplers. Both of these guys, even Brady only a 50% finish rate, and Chiesa 61% finish rate in his career. But both these guys are mostly submission artists, and they're both good enough grapplers. But the thing is, wow, I forgot about this, Brady. Chiesa's been finished in all of his losses. And Brady's never lost. So that would, when you've got 5 combined losses and 100% of them have come inside the distance, that gets me looking at the under or at the fight doesn't go, which is what?
-145.
Okay. Maybe he does get submitted by Brady. Maybe Brady gets submitted by Chiesa. I mean, this is this is a show me fight for Sean Brady here, because, you know, Chiesa's been showing us for a long time. Let's go over the names on his resume real quick here, because it's very important to look at. You know, Brady, you know, obviously fighting guys like Nardiev and stuff. I mean, the wins: Iaquinta, Keevanen, Colton Smith, Francisco Trinaldo, Jim Miller, Beneil Dariush, and then the losses. Listen to the records of the guys that have beaten Michael Chiesa. Vicente Luque, 14-3. Former champion Anthony Pettis, 11-9. Former title contender Kevin Lee, 11-7. Joe Lozon, 15-12, and then Jorge Masvidal, 12-8. So, you know, is Brady on the level of those guys that have already beaten him? He's not there yet. Can he get there if he beats Michael Chiesa? Yeah, but it's a show me situation. So until he shows me, I got to pick Chiesa here, because I think he's just as good, if not better, of a grappler than Sean Brady is.
Yep, 100% agree. Show me spot. I think it's a good point there. Yeah, I don't see myself betting on this fight. Like I said, I'm going to pick Sean Brady, but if I was forced to bet this, it'd probably be a dog shot on Chiesa. Like you said, show me spot. I do like that. Looks like a lot of people are on Brady. I do see some people on Chiesa there as well. Yeah, but regardless, this is a good fight. Maybe if you're on the Brady side, maybe Brady by submission could be something to look at. Like, this guy's a legit black belt, and Chiesa's, you know, giving up his neck left and right. So yeah, good call. People in the chat, Brady sub could be very interesting depending on the price, right?
Yeah, four career losses by submission for Chiesa. Yeah, and I mean, this is how Brady gets it done. He's an excellent submission artist. That guillotine that he works is fantastic. And according to Paul Felder, who trained with him a ton, he said his arm triangle is just vicious, and the squeeze that this guy Brady has is next level. And then we've seen Chiesa do it over and over and over and over and over again in the UFC. This guy gets people's backs like it's his job. He's so slick at doing it. If he gets on Brady's back, Brady's going to be in a whole heap of trouble. I'm beginning to think that the best way to bet this fight is just bet the fight doesn't go.
Yeah, I don't hate that. But yeah, good fight, though. I cannot wait to see it play out. Probably one of the best, if not the best fight on the card. But we'll move on to the main event. Weezy, we talked about so many great fights on this card, and now we have to end it on a sad note, right? We have Ketlen Vieira going against Miesha Tate. This card's great, but I'm not going to lie, I'm not overly excited about the main event, but we got to talk about it. So we have Ketlen Vieira. She is 30 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Miesha Tate, 35 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. Vieira's going to be 5 years younger. She's going to have a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. Ketlen Vieira, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights, submitting Sarah McMahon, a decision win over Kat Zingano, a knockout loss to Irene Aldana, a decision win over Ciara Eubanks, and then a decision loss to Yana Kunitskaya. Miesha Tate, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights, a decision win over Jessica Ai, a submission win over Holly Holm, a submission loss to Amanda Nunes, a decision loss to Raquel Pennington, and then just recently a win over a 44-year-old Marion Renault. And what's really interesting about Miesha Tate is the fact that she took a huge layoff. I mean, she fought Raquel Pennington 4 years and 11 months ago, like nearly 5 years ago, and then she comes back just a couple months ago and fights Marion Renault. So it was nearly like just about almost a 5-year layoff. She comes back and beats Marion Renault. Very impressive performance, but what I will say is Marion Renault does have a 50% takedown defense. And what I'll also say is Marion Renault, that was her retirement fight, and she has 44. But regardless, it was good to see Miesha Tate come back and look pretty good. As far as Ketlen Vieira, I'm not, that high on her. I did like her performance against Ciara Eubanks. She was able to outstrike her for 3 rounds. She also mixed in some takedowns. She did slow down a little bit as the fight goes on, but that seems to be the case with Vieira. She also slowed down in the Yana Kunitskaya fight. Really weird fight there where she was able to win the first round. I think she lost the second, and then she was on her way to win the third, but Yana actually reversed Vieira with 20 seconds left and ended the fight on top, landing some nice elbows, so she got the loss there. Yeah, it's an interesting fight. Both very solid grapplers. I do like the fact that Vieira has a 92, almost 93% takedown defense. I think on the feet, I do favor Vieira. I do like her striking a little bit, but this is a really, really close fight. Which way are you leaning here, Weezy? What's sticking out to you the most on this fight?
Yeah, there's actually a few things sticking out here. First of all, Ketlen Vieira, 5 years younger, 2 inches taller, and a 2-inch reach advantage. So you got to love those tail of the tape advantages that she has there. She's got about half the pro experience that Miesha Tate has, half the cage time, about half the years as a pro. So it's obviously Tate that's more experienced, that's been around the block more. But look at this. She's only got 3 more UFC fights than Ketlen Vieira. And, Tate has finished or fought about 40% of her career at the UFC level, while for Vieira, it's more than half. So I would actually say that the experience numbers, I mean, obviously they do favor Tate here, but with, Ketlen being younger and having a good amount of her experience at the highest level, I don't think she's at a big experience disadvantage here. If we look at how they finish fights, almost identical. Ketlen Vieira, 54% finish rate and 58% finish rate for Miesha Tate. In these ladies, 9 combined losses. We've had 6 of them finish inside the distance. So that's interesting too. That would tell us that if we're handicapping the fight goes or fight doesn't go, that the fight doesn't go would be juiced up around -200. Obviously, that's not going to be the case. Both of these ladies absorb more significant strikes per minute than they land. 36% striking accuracy for Ketlen Vieira, not good. 45 for Tate, not great either. Tate has shown a little bit of power, landing 1 knockdown. Vieira's never knocked anybody down. And Vieira has been knocked down once in 342 significant strikes absorbed, and so has Tate in 366 significant strikes absorbed. Their striking defense numbers are almost identical. But here's where I find the interesting part. Ketlen Vieira, almost 50% on her takedown attempts, out-controlling her opponents at a 44% to 10% clip. So like a 4.5 to 1 ratio of her out-controlling her opponents, while Miesha Tate out-controls her opponents by about 5% and has actually given up 4 more takedowns in her 10 UFC fights than she's gotten. So she's actually shown the ability to be much more efficient on the ground, has Ketlen Vieira. If Ketlen wants to keep it standing, she can rely on her 93% takedown defense. If Ketlen wants to fight on the ground, she can rely on her 48% takedown accuracy and 44% control time. The strength of schedule here is going to be in Tate's favor. She's obviously fought the tougher brand of competition here. When you just see names like and Holm and Amanda Nunes and Pennington on the record and compare it to, a notch below that in ladies like Kunitskaya, Eubanks, Aldana, Zingano, McMahon. I like Ketlen Vieira here, actually, quite a bit. I think she's going to be bigger and stronger. I think her wrestling and ground game is just as good as Miesha Tate's, and she's younger. She's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage, a 2-inch height advantage. There's a lot of things here that I like on the Vieira side. And then I think if we look at the line, we're going to see that, it's very close, and she's actually a little bit of an underdog, is Vieira.
Yep, I think Vieira is going to definitely be the unpopular pick this week. We see 75% of people on Tapology are picking Miesha Tate. But yeah, I'm actually with you, Weezy. I do like Ketlen Vieira as well. The only concern I have is going to be the gas tank. If this was a 3-round fight and I saw Vieira as a dog here against Tate, I'd be playing Vieira, but the gas tank kind of does concern me a lot. We saw against Yanez, she slowed down bad. If that fight was 5 rounds, yeah, Yana would have probably won. We saw she slowed down bad against Eubanks. Eubanks, somebody that typically slows down in her own right, she actually won the 3rd round against Vieira, so that kind of concerned me as well. So yeah, the 5 round is the only thing that does concern me about Vieira here. Somebody brought up a good point in the chat. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. Kung Do Chicken saying, wait for weigh-ins and see how Vieira looked. Last fight with Kunitskaya, she looked horrible and gassed out. Good point. She did look bad on the weigh-ins there. But yeah, Weezy, she's going to have she's going to be 5 years younger. She's more active. Yes, Miesha Tate, she came back after nearly 5 years. She beat Marion Renault, but that's Marion Renault. Marion Renault has a 50% takedown defense, where Vieira has a 92.86% takedown defense. Her takedown defense is phenomenal. absolutely phenomenal. And her offensive wrestling is good as well. So, yeah, as far as the striking, I favor Vieira in the striking as well. I think it's, close and competitive, but I do like the striking of Vieira. So, yeah, I'm liking a lot of things on the Vieira side, but I guess the one thing holding me back is the fact that this is 5 rounds and the fact that I don't know if Vieira is going to be able to keep the same pace she does keep within the first couple rounds all the way into the 4th and the 5th. That's my only concern there. But we do see that Tate is a favorite, opening up plus 140 as a dog. That's interesting. And she's now minus 120. Vieira opening up plus or minus 160. She's now plus 100. Yeah, curious to see where the line goes. I'm expecting money to come in on Tate throughout the week, but yeah, I'm kind of tempted on Vieira plus money. But again, the gas tank is the only thing that's really holding me back. The fight goes to decision minus 175. The fight doesn't go to decision plus 135. I'd be curious what they set the over under at. If they set it at like 3.5, maybe 2.5 alternative could be something to look at. I think this does get extended. I don't really see either fighter getting a submission. I don't really see either fighter getting knocked out. So if I can get like an over 2.5 rounds at a decent price, over 3.5 potentially, I would not mind that. But yeah, my lean is Vieira. Don't know if I'll bet it depending on when the line goes. And I do like a potential over situation here. So how about you, Weezy? Any thoughts on the fight that goes, doesn't go? And any thoughts on the money line?
I think I'd be leaning fight doesn't go actually here. And it's a very good point. What Kung Dao brought up in the chat is that, we did see Ketlen Vieira. I was telling you this. She's huge for the division. She's absolutely huge. I was saying, like, she looks like an extra from Apocalypto. Like she'd have a spear, like killing a jaguar in one of those scenes. And she has to cut a ton of weight in order to make 135. And both of these ladies tend to rely on their grappling in order to get to their win condition. So in a 5-round fight with one of them being aging and one of them cutting a ton of weight to get to make the weight class, I could see this fight getting really greasy and really ugly in the 4th and 5th rounds, especially if there's a grappling heavy game plan from either of these ladies early in the fight. So, shout out Kung Dao Chicken, who said, don't bet on this fight until you see these ladies on the scale. That would be something that I'm going to be doing. If I see Ketlen looking like she did in the Yanez weigh-in, yeah, I might be going for Miesha because I think that she might be able to take over later in this fight. If Ketlen cuts a ton of weight and she gasses out early, she could absolutely be finished. And Ketlen showed that she can be a little bit chinny. Irene Aldana just absolutely slept her with one punch. So, I mean, Tate isn't Aldana on the feet, but I kind of see some value when the fight doesn't go, with this being a 5-round fight. I think that does, favor Tate a little bit more than it does Vieira, unless she figures out how to make that weight cut a little more easy for herself this time.
Yep, like I said, if this was 3 rounds, oh yeah, I'd be betting Vieira right now. But the 5 round,
I would too.
Yeah, the 5 rounds just kind of concerns me. Like, what is Vieira going to look like in the 4th and 5th? I have a feeling it won't look that great. So yeah, it's probably a pass for me. But yeah, like you said, maybe the under 4.5 rounds, maybe the fight doesn't go, especially at plus money. Could be something to look at. Maybe if you are on the Miesha side, maybe sprinkle that 3, 4, 5. You'll get a crazy price on all those.
Yeah.
So yeah, any other final thoughts on this fight, Weezy?
Not really, man. I'm leaning Vieira, but like I say, the 5-round thing does worry me here. If they don't pace themselves early, you could see this getting really ugly in the championship rounds. But yeah, still leaning Vieira, but yeah, you got to wait till the weigh-in on this one because we've seen Ketlen just have a ton of problems making 136.
Shout out to MT saying, I'm so glad that Brady isn't bald today. If you guys knew, I put my money where my mouth is. I said, if Yahya Rodriguez beats Max Holloway by decision, I will shave my head. And I talked it over with my fiance, and my fiance said if I did shave my head, that she'd leave me. So not only would I have lost my hair, I would have lost my fiance. And she was actually, for the first time in a while, she was actually watching the fight. She was paying attention to the fight, rooting for Max Holloway. When Max Holloway hurt Yahya, she was screaming. She was cheering for Max Holloway more than I was. But yeah, glad to see that my hair is still on my head. I don't usually do crazy stuff like that, but that was kind of fun. It made the fight a little bit more interesting. And Yahya made a lot closer than I thought. So,
that was a close
but yeah,
fight.
Show today, Weezy.
I was telling you, the 1st, 2nd, and the 5th were kind of close. I mean, I scored the fight for Max. I thought he won it, but boy, I mean, Yahya Rodriguez, hell of a performance. He was super durable, super game. Great main event. I'm so glad we got to see that one.
Yep, for sure. It was a good card overall, and I think this card's going to deliver as well. I don't know if we're going to see every single fight, but to finish. But I think this fight's going to be awesome. So yeah, guys, everybody in the chat, Weezy, this was a great show. We're 2 hours and 20 minutes in, and I feel like it just flew by. This show, it flew by, and the time flies when you're having fun, when you're talking about fights, talking about spots, and yeah, I feel like we talked about a lot of good spots. I'm gonna start getting some. Look out for those props as well. So Uncle Weezy, let them know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week.
Yeah, man. You can find me here on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday night for Stat Diggers, every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Central Time for the DraftKings show. And then I've been doing the watch-alongs on Saturday with Boston Nick and the boys. So you can find me there. You can also find me on my channel, Uncle Weezy. I do balls deep breakdowns of fights. I'm going to do a full card breakdown on Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Central Time, which I call Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy. And we do the balls deep breakdowns on Wednesday. I'll choose 2 fights to go really deep into and figure out which fights those will be. If you guys have any particular requests for that, hit me up on Twitter. Always great doing this show. Time does fly when you're having fun, Brady, and I hope everybody had as much fun watching as we did recording.
Yep. Any early leans on which fight you're going balls deep on? I know somebody in the chat said they're looking forward to maybe Chiesa Brady balls deep.
Yeah, that would probably be the number one choice. And then Sabatini Lutz would be a great one. And I might look further into Levy versus Rafa Garcia, but Cody Durden versus Kang Aori could also be really good too. So yeah, hit me up on Twitter. Let me know what you want to see. But Chiesa Brady is going to have to be a must, I think.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good. You guys can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. My full card breakdown prediction video will be out sometime tomorrow, maybe Tuesday morning. I'm about done with my research. Just got to record at this point. And yeah, content throughout the week, DraftKings content on my channel as well. Go live about 2 or 3 times a week. Me and Weezy will potentially go live tomorrow for the main event deep dive. Do you think anybody's going to show up if we do a main event deep dive, Weezy?
I didn't even think about that, man. Yeah, they should, dude. They should. They you know, it's a main event on a UFC card. And keep in mind, you guys, we're not going to see a card the week after this. It's Thanksgiving. So, you know, you got to do the main event breakdown, man.
For sure. I hope people show up. So show up tomorrow. We'll go live at around like 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, something like that. But yeah, guys, smash a like on the way out. Do want to say thank you guys so much. We reached 108 likes. It's always a great goal to get 100 likes by the time we get out of here. A shout out to everybody that contributed in the chat. And we will see you guys soon. Check out the Pub Sports Radio Drafting Show on Tuesday. And check out all the other content on Pub Sports. See you guys. And good luck for UFC Vegas 43. Let's make some money on this